going down to help put a roof or something down, or whatever they need. I'd like to open this meeting at, let me see, 7:28. And I see we have approved minutes, August 21st, 2017. Have you got any omissions or corrections to the minutes?
Thank God. Someone's paying
It's a
attention.
given.
Yeah.
Okay. You always make them better, Ann.
There's not much about this one, though, I must say. Okay. Just one that needs discussion, maybe, and that's the second page, discussion of enforcement orders for Turkey Farm. About halfway down the paragraph, it says native grass seed would be introduced. They are going through drainage solutions now with the new peer reviewer hired through planning board. I just suggest adding drainage solutions now to address water levels in the farm pond above the design level, and insert what the design level is. I think it was 262 or something.
I think they really got into that night they had before.
Yeah, but that's the drainage solution you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the only one. Otherwise, it's just small edits.
Perfect, thank you.
Anybody else? Would somebody make a motion to accept the minutes? August 21st?
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of August 21st, 2017 as amended.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, administrative discussion. Tree removal on conservation land near 11 Elm Street. Somebody going to speak to that? Amy, you have?
Come on up.
So I have these photos here. Is it only 2 sheets? Actually, there's 3 of them here. Yep. Is there anything here? Is it here?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay. Okay, so Kelly Smith, 11 Elm Road. We have trees that are, the base of the trees are on the conservation land behind our house, but there are 2 presently leaning on or over the house. They touch the house often, even the ones that aren't leaning over, they have a big sway. They move quite a bit. In fact, we're surprised they haven't broken yet. So we've been there for about a little over 2 years, and we can see these, I can show you on the picture there. You can see that this is actually 2 here, side by side. And then this one is this tree here. So this leans over the house, and things have fallen on the house. We've had to replace the roof. So the house is 16 years old, and or 16 and a half, probably 17. These trees, we were told when we moved in that these trees were sort of new when they had the house. So they're big trees that grow really fast, and
What kind are they?
we don't know the kind.
Sounds like poplar.
Yeah, it does.
I'm not positive, but there's also these vines that are pretty invasive and pulling down.
Bittersweet?
I don't.
Probably.
Some of them are grape.
Oh.
There's bittersweet and grape.
Oh, yeah, I see
Wild
the
grape,
grape
yeah.
leaves down here.
So what we're looking at is these 2 that are leaning clearly at the house, the one that's towering, and then there's one right behind the towering one, and then there's a sort of a smaller one that's growing that as soon as these are removed, that would obviously take its place and grow the same way. So there's a total of 5 trees that are right in a row. The base from the house is about 20 to 30 feet back for the base. The top of the trees, most of them, or the few in the front, touch the house when the wind blows them.
Can you enlighten me to the point of where is Elm Street?
Elm Road is off of Emerson, right up
To Long
near
Lake.
the Long Lake area.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just was.
So as you're going up the hill of Emerson, you turn right, and that's Elm Road right there.
And what's conservation land is? Would that be Long Lake Park?
There's a mix of little lots
Here,
in there. There's 2 of them are conservation land. The one in between them, of course, is tax title land, and then the one next to you is tax title land, which they may or may not be looking into purchasing from the town. So since two of them are CONCOM, and we're actually not sure if the trees are on conservation land or tax title land. We haven't gotten that far yet.
Oh,
What's your
Okay.
pleasure, folks?
I don't see any issue with it. I mean, it looks like they're right on top of the house.
Although I think what we did last time when we had trees removed for that solar array, we went out, we did a site walk, and then they marked the trees that they wanted to come down.
Yep.
So I would think we'd want to do similar to that. Although,
Yeah, I thought you might want to have a site walk, at least to look at it. I'm not sure if this is in the buffer zone or not. I don't know if there's wetlands
right,
down the hill. So this is more a conservation land issue than a wetland issue.
So how many trees in total were you looking to cut?
There's a total of 5. 4 of them are really large, and then there's one growing up in between them that looks to be the same, exact same type, that if we removed all of these, it's literally like between the two groups,
Okay.
sort of growing between the 20 and 30.
Well, does somebody want to set up a site walk to go and investigate?
sure. Friday afternoons are good for me, or Saturday or Sunday.
And just so you know, I won't be here, so.
I could make Friday during the day, possibly afternoon work. What time in the afternoon, like late?
Like 4 or something?
I can do 4.
4, okay. 4 on Friday.
Would you like me to be there?
2:30 would be easier.
What? Would you like me to be there?
That would be a good idea.
That would be, yeah, that would be.
And definitely tie a ribbon or mark the trees somehow.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, if you're
tentative
not
for
there, you
4,
could do that. That's,
pending.
Okay, I'm gonna. 4 o'clock.
Yeah. Sounds like you have at least 2. I'm gonna see if I can make it work.
and maybe if you would have a, I don't know if it's possible to
You might be
have
able
a
to swing
plot
by
plan.
and peer over too.
A plot
Yeah.
plan of,
Yeah, I actually
No, that's
got
true, you
one
can
from
see it.
Amy, just that shows sort of the lines and
Yeah.
what, it does show that one's, it doesn't read conservation land on it, I don't think.
No,
But we looked at the lots to understand what's
That
what.
house is that new, there must be a septic plan, complete detailed septic plan would show your lot plan, wouldn't it?
I've been looking at that, and I don't know if it's what you want. I don't think it's what you want. It's just the house, the structure within the lot, but nothing around it.
it doesn't show grading for the septic system?
Yeah, but it's only the lot.
Yeah,
Is that
If your backyard's
sufficient?
not very deep, then it sounds like.
No, it's not, exactly. It's literally, you can see in those pictures,
I guess the big
Goes
thing
just
is,
out beyond the
we want to
porch.
be careful whether we're addressing tax title land, which is town, or we're addressing
Okay.
conservation land. And it's under our control before we go telling people they can go do something.
right, okay. And we'll be able to do that in that site walk, or?
yeah, hopefully.
well,
I mean, if we had a
o-
plot
only if it's,
plan.
only if it's on the plan you've got, because sometimes they show where the lot lines come into yours.
Oh, it is right over it.
Okay.
And if it's to scale, we could measure it out.
It would be to scale, yeah.
Do you have a suggestion as far as where I should go to get that?
I can set one out and leave it on the counter for what I can find.
Okay.
So it'll just be across the hall and pick it up.
Wouldn't the assessors have something?
The assessors would too, but I'll go through and see if there's
Okay.
another septic file or if the building has something,
Okay.
so.
Unless it's
and
such
I
a
can pull up
small
the GIS.
distance, you could probably take a tape measure from like the base of your house
Right.
out to where the trees are, and then the map should say how far your
have an
house is from your lot
understanding,
line. I mean,
Yeah.
To get a rough idea, a reasonable idea.
Yeah, I mean, the lots in back are little one, and the tax title, or whatever it is like a
Oh,
little
and it's a
paper
small
road piece.
section.
It's, I mean,
Yep.
they're tiny.
Yeah.
It seems like it's like this big, but.
there might be markers out there too.
Well, you must have bounds, meets and bounds too, someplace on your property.
And the deed usually has
We
meets
have
and
not
bounds.
seen anything.
It might just be the corners, yeah, not
Yeah.
where the other property lines come in.
Okay. Well, there'll be some people.
So
out
Friday
there.
at
Or
4?
on Friday, okay.
Yeah.
Friday at 4,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you. Do you want to hold on to these, or?
Oh, yours.
Probably
Once you
won't.
hang on
I
for
sent
next
them
time in
actually,
case you-
too.
Yeah, I've
Thank you.
got it here somewhere.
Thanks.
And we've got a 7:35 hearing to get going with, public hearing, notice of intent, 73 Howell Ave, R-17, R-57, map 2, SDP 204-8-6.
Good evening. Ted
Evening.
Doucette, Doucette Engineering, representing Glenn Berger who is the owner of the property, Black Maple Development.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
I'm sorry.
Glenn
Oh, okay.
Berger.
Yep.
I have the notification receipts.
Thank you.
So, we have here is filing for a single-family house. We have two resource areas here. This one I have labeled as ILSFA, ILSFB, that's what I originally had considered them. And then we have offsets to these resource areas shown here. And the plan, the proposed plan is, we'll discuss how you want to handle this, but the filing had shown the septic system in this area. After going through and looking at it, we thought the septic system would go better over here for several reasons. We have a proposed house box here where we could put a house that's measured 20 by 40 right now, but obviously it's just, the house will be much smaller than that. And again, the 50-foot offsets and the 100-foot offsets. There's been a few developments since today. Amy and I walked it, and there may be a possibility of a hydraulic connection to a wetland down in this area, coming down from here and running down in this area. I was surprised.
Instead
I
of
can't
an
dispute it.
isolated land subject to flooding, it's
Then
might be a
it might be,
BBW.
we don't know yet. So, to get to the point is, I think, from what Amy and I discussed today, is that it seems that we're not ready to make a decision, but we want the Conservation Commission, we know you're gonna wanna do a site walk anyway. So I think that we can do a site walk and take a look at it, and then at that point, you can decide what measures to take, whether you can make that decision yourself, or if you wanted to do according to regulations, bring in a third party to do any of that.
And what about a connection between this and this?
I don't see it, you know, there's a pathway right through here, and it's, as you can see, it's higher.
There's a pathway at the
Looks
bottom.
like there's some contouring.
There's not really a
Yeah.
pathway
No,
between the
but
two,
the-
there's a pathway at the bottom.
The big
Well,
issue,
of the
the
small
big
one.
issue is natural heritage is involved with this.
Right.
I saw that MEMA letter. Yep.
So we've gone to Natural Heritage and we've requested, we've given them the update because the lines have changed. There's no natural heritage areas on the property. Both habitat and endangered species are now delineated here, where I believe they were originally delineated up here where the original conservation restriction was placed. So now that those lines have been moved back, previous abutters have applied to Natural Heritage to have that restriction lifted and have been able to build a house in a very similar manner to this. So we've gone through that same process. They have 30 days to review. We're probably at about 14 days right now, so we understand obviously you're not going to want to close until you hear from them. So I think the prudent thing to do, we can talk about anything else, but at this point, we want to request an extension to wait till we hear from Natural Heritage and to determine what the commission wants to do on these areas after they take a site walk. And I understand there have been some comments that there's some very valid points and some good comments that we received from an abutter. Again, I feel that, you know, that's pertinent once we figure out what we're dealing with out here. It's a lot more pertinent.
Sounds like you gotta do more research, what you're saying, to hear from Natural Heritage and
Would Natural Heritage be the ones that would weigh in on this wetland over here? Have they delineated?
No, that hasn't
That?
been delineated, it's just, it's beyond the,
It was,
Is it
it
this?
was delineated for some of the original developments as
Okay.
BVW. And actually, the big one was originally delineated, and there was an ORAD in
This one right here?
2001.
Yeah.
No,
This
the
one,
one
this
shown
one
on the
here.
plan.
Oh, okay.
In 2001, there's an ORAD that approved it as a BVW. And I'm not sure if anyone really looked at it, or they're just being, you know, I couldn't find, I did find who did it. I can't remember who did the original delineation. But
Now, wait, where is this property on this
This
plan?
property here, oriented pretty much the same way where this is the access that comes in through here and then opens up through here.
Is that near where the parking lot is?
Yeah,
Parking lot
Okay.
is 2 lots down,
yeah.
1 lot
So
and
you're gonna
an
have
excess.
the parking lot, then Mr. Peterino, oh, everybody's here. Then Mr. Peterino's property, and then this one, and then Mr. Jensen's property in the back part of it.
So the road that goes down to go across, that's in the middle of this?
The road,
That goes to the back piece, down, used to go
no,
across the...
it's further south, I guess,
Okay.
if it's the one I'm thinking you're talking about.
Okay, so. So that wetland is right here.
Yes,
And then kind of sticks out like that, and then this isolated piece is up here.
so it's more, pretty much, probably smaller than that, up there, and then the isolated piece is gonna come up like this. Or, you know.
Right. Alright, well,
I guess
I guess we can't do
Yeah, it's not-
much until.
Yeah, so
more
Define the
information.
resource.
very kindly, I was provided with all sorts of extra maps by, in a butter. So this was, I can pass it down a bit. Looks like we walked through the area. Here's Hartwell. Your driveway would be here, right? This lot got divided out. So this lot is actually in for certificate of compliance later tonight. The new lot would come in through here, right? Or no?
Right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, right through
Right
there.
here, 'cause here's the barn, and so this lot.
Yeah, it comes in pretty close to it.
And then-
where the old farmhouse is.
Yes.
This is that
exactly.
farmhouse. So, so you can see, they called this BVW back then, which is part of what is the isolated, and then they didn't get the little guy in here. And then here's the Hartwell parking lot down there. And
So-
then Miss Perino's lot is right there.
I mean, according to the letter that I read, MEMA said that they were never contacted that this was going to be subdivided, and that's an issue.
Is it really, is it their purview if you're subdividing when you're not doing work? I mean, there was no on-the-ground work done. It was just subdivided. They can go in, subdivide it, remove it, subdivide it, remove it, and I don't think Natural Heritage is concerned with it until you start doing work out there at this point.
Yeah, I think Natural Heritage
Natural Heritage. yeah.
is in one sense a separate issue. And I'm not sure how, you might have better information than I do, how they might want to handle this, because this first came up when these guys did, what are you, 85A or, no?
65.
Yes, when it came in for the determination of applicability down there. And then we sort of caught up to the fact that things have been subdivided. So Natural Heritage said, yeah, you can go ahead and build that house down there. They're in the process of doing the same thing for the next house. And there's a couple pieces of the Natural Heritage permit that have not, the conservation permit that have not been met yet, which we can talk about.
Okay, so we can probably put that issue to the side and just address whether or not, I mean, we need to hear from them first, I would think.
Yes, yeah, you can't close without them.
But.
Right, and there's a question of connectivity, so I thought we talked about
That's the.
more of us needing to go out and look.
And look at the connectivity of this to
And you
this.
were gonna look too, is it together, right?
We've already taken a site walk and,
Right.
and
It's tough, you know, isolated lands like the flooding, you never quite know what you're gonna walk into. You can walk into wherever it's quite obvious it's not gonna meet the characteristics. There's one that's quite obvious they're going to, and then you have one that's something kinda in between, which unfortunately I think this one is.
I heard though that by that letter, it said that it was delineated, that was delineated, I think this one, at a time, July, which was one of the drier months.
it's
So that you could
based,
still,
it's based on soil hydrology and plants,
Vegetation.
so.
so kind of the first question is there a hydraulic connection as with 10 Fort Pond? In which case it becomes BVW and this whole discussion is almost moot, because then you have a 50-foot no build, which the driveway would be in. And it seemed to me that this I'm gonna call it a pathway, because you're not calling it a stream yet, is more apparent than the one out of 10 Fort Pond. Not for its entire length by any means, and it does, appear and disappear, so.
There's a bank. I mean, it's got-
I saw one, and I'm sure you could argue there's not one there, so,
Define bank.
yeah. So it may be worth a third-party review, because if there is if someone does see a stream bank there, there's gonna have to be obviously that argument, I imagine. If there's not, then there's gonna have to be ILSF calculations. Because I'm not sure what Leah Brisbane, who did the wetland delineation, was basing her flagging on. Because if it's ILSF, vegetation doesn't matter. It's just flooding calc.
Yeah, she was based, I did talk to her today,
Yeah.
and she did base it on the same thing as the other ones, hydrology. Yeah. And vegetation, she said too. I know you said you didn't see anything, but that's what she said, so.
So it seems like we gotta hear from Natural Heritage, but basically somebody should boots on the ground out there and take a look.
Well, how about third-party review? I mean, I would think that's something we'd want to start, even as we set up a
Well,
sidewalk.
would you like to see it first? I mean, if you guys go out there and say, hey, to me, it meets the standard and it's gonna be connected, then do we have to go through that whole process?
But none of us are delineators, We need to.
Well, if anyone feels strongly that there is a stream segment there, it doesn't have to be a continuous stream, a stream segment that this is connected to, then it's bordering vegetated wetland. You do not need a stream to be continuous from what is now shown as ISF all the way down to what is really the main BVW at the bottom.
Nick Fastendahl, Level Design Group, here on behalf of the Pitterinos at 65 Hartwell Avenue. I don't know if the board was distributed the letter and additional plans that we prepared reviewing the proposed project. I don't know if everybody had a chance to take a look at the letter, but it outlined a lot of these issues with the resource area delineation. As shown on the plan, they're calling them the two complexes ILSFs, which, by strict definition from DEP, there's no buffer zones associated with them. So they're kind of in between, they're two balls in the air. I mean, they'd like to call it an ILSF because then the 50-foot no disturb zone doesn't apply, but they're showing buffer zones which isn't applicable to an ILSF. And, the delineation itself, an ILSF is an enclosed boundary that holds a certain amount of water. So you have to provide calculations that document, in accordance with DEP, the standards of an ILSF. So based on the plan as currently shown, that for the big ILSF isn't even a closed loop, so there's no way to call that an ILSF at this point. Second, based on the historic information, previous filings which went to Natural Heritage, state agency that created the conservation restriction, all this was hydraulically connected and called BVW. The large wetland in the back, which has buffer zone on this property, and the wetland which travels through the center of the property. It was probably, I wasn't involved with the project at that time, but I'm sure it was thoroughly reviewed. There was a conservation large restriction or placed on the remaining property that Black Maple Development agreed to. And the main concern with the abutters here, the surrounding neighborhood, is that the conservation restriction agreed to by the developer in the town, in which the Conservation Commission also signed off on at that point in time, was for 6 lots. It says it, condition number 3, 6 lots for placing 90-something acres in conservation area, conservation restriction. You have the remaining 12 lots, or 12 acres, or however many acres in the original property area, to create 6 dwelling units. That's the language that was approved in 2005. Immediately after that, within the next 6 months, the developer, Black Maple Development, subdivided 2 additional lots out of that, and since that point has never notified Natural Heritage. Why? I don't know. We ran into it 2 years ago when I was working on the Pitterino lot at 65 Hartwell Avenue. Mr. Pitterino purchased the lot without knowing the restrictions of the parcel. He was told it was a developable lot, and there were no constraints or restrictions other than the conservation restriction area in the rear of the lot, and there was some BVW off-site, which had buffers on-site, which we applied for an RDA for through the commission.
Wouldn't the restriction have been on his deed?
The restriction itself is on his deed.
So how
but
come he
the-
didn't
the-
do
The
his due
language
diligence?
itself of 6 developable lots is in the MISA approval. So Mr. Pittarino wasn't told, well, we already built the 6 lots, you're the 7th. And so Natural Heritage said, well, wait, well, hold on. You know, and we made the case to those guys that we purchased a lot, or Mr. Pittarino did, unknowingly, and we were trying to work with Natural Heritage at that time. Now, what the abutters behind me and Mr. Pittarino would like the commission to do is petition Natural Heritage to not allow this 8th lot. It goes well beyond the original scope of the original approval of the conservation restriction, which the Conservation Commission at that time signed off on. It went through a thorough permitting process, and since that time, the developer has shown no intentions of staying within that 6 lots. Like I said, it's documented in the letter. A&R plans were filed immediately after getting the approval from MISA in 2000, in late, the original approval was June 2005. We had an A&R filed that created Mr. Pittarino's lot in August of 2005. And then the second A&R filed in December of 2005 that created this lot, with the town never being notified and MISA never being notified. So we have a lot of abutters in the neighborhood, people who purchased lots under that existing 6-lot approval who don't want the additional density. It's not approved. The town never agreed to it in 2005. You know, there's a proper channels and process that were never followed when the A&R lots were created. Unfortunately, through the A&R process, I'm sure as most of the board members are aware, you need to have frontage and area, and that's it. You can go to the planning board. It's called an approval not required plan because there's no approval required under subdivision control law. You just have to have those 2 things. They don't notify any other state agencies. They don't call the Conservation Commission to review anything. It's strictly a sign-off. The lot gets recorded, and it exists. It's not saying it's a developable lot. It's just saying, you know, that parcel's been subdivided, and it exists in that fashion. So my client, Mr. Pittarino, and I know there are some other abutters in the audience here in that neighborhood, would like the board, or excuse me, the commission to write a letter to Natural Heritage in opposition of allowing this additional lot. That's something I'd like the board to consider this evening while the abutters are here. I'm sure other people can speak to this matter, but they feel that it hasn't been a transparent process from the beginning. Mr. Pittarino could have been stuck on the hook for purchasing a lot if Natural Heritage decided not to allow the additional lot, but they seem sympathetic to us because of our situation. The original parcel was sold to a third party who eventually sold it to Mr. Pittarino, where the proper documentation wasn't transferred with that. So that's the Natural Heritage issue that the abutters would like the commission to take under consideration. And you know, they'd also like to see this wetland line go to third-party review. It's an important part of this project. It's going to drastically, if there's a 50-foot no disturb zone from the edge of that BVW, it's going to drastically limit or possibly make this lot undevelopable under current regulations of the town. So we feel that having a third-party review is quite important here. It's going to be something that the commission could hang their hat on for not allowing a development on this parcel. And there's other plan issues. The septic system, technically there's not supposed to be an application to the commission for a lot with a septic system on it until it's approved by the Board of Health, because you need to show Title V compliant system. You can't just say, oh, we're gonna move it from here to there. I mean, septic systems have a lot of components, possibly a lot of impact on surrounding resource areas with regards to discharge of effluent. So, you know, it's our opinion that, you know, the filing shouldn't even have been made without a Title V approved septic system. And that just highlights a few of the issues in the letter. If anybody has any questions on the letter, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, we'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay. I think we'd better take it all under advisement and do some research.
I'd like to just make one point of clarification. The lot that the Pitterinos purchased was not from Black Maple Development. There was an intermediary purchase that went from Black Maple to another.
Seal Harbor.
Seal
That's
Harbor.
correct,
And
and
then, I just want to make sure that there's no implication that there was anything hidden, or there were a few barbs and general assumptions in there. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that there was secondary sale.
I sat on the board at that time, and I vaguely remember that it was applied for 6 lots, and the rest of it was conservation land, and there wasn't supposed to be any other additional lots.
Yeah, I read the letter, the MISA letter, and it clearly says that no additional lots or no changes to this agreement are to be made unless MISA is contacted and agrees to it.
So I'd just like to comment. Seal Harbor, who I think Mr. Pitterino bought his lot, had a purchase and sale with me for this lot and Mr. Pitterino's. And in that paperwork, it says he had to go to MISA, that work was not done, and it was up to him to take care of the rest of the development of the lots. He walked away from this one and bought the other one, and then did what he did with it. When we realized that the map, the overlay was going to change, and that made this lot possible, we wrote to MISA. Here's the letter, a response from Miss Deanne Merrill, who said, basically, here is a copy of Mr. Pitterino's paperwork. Do it in duplicate, fill in your paperwork accordingly, and you'll have the permit in 30 days.
Wait, this is the process that you said was 14 days?
Yeah,
30
That's
days.
30 days.
No, but you're at the point of 14
Right,
days?
yes.
And
Wait, I
to
thought
be
you were natural heritage 14 days, not MISA.
Approximately, well,
Same,
about the same,
same.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the other thing too about MISA, you
thinking
come to
Lipa.
them.
I know.
I was putting a P instead
I
of
was
yes,
thinking
very
Lima,
different.
too.
Why do they need?
I was wondering what that.
Got it. Sorry.
I've never heard of MISA or any other agency being sympathetic to somebody who got stuck with a land with a restriction. That it's got to be based on the merits. I don't think it's because they felt bad for anybody. So we're, it's the same we're going through exactly the same process.
I just want to note, when I did buy the lot, I had permit in hand. I bought the lot with the permit paid for by the seller. So I had no issue. I dealt with nothing to get permitting, a permit in hand, paid
What-
for
what kind of
by
permit?
the builder who bought the lot,
What kind of permit?
building permit.
Building permit.
And the only reason this got brought up is because I wanted to change the septic system a little bit, and then we asked the question, this all came about, so. And I almost didn't have a lot at that point. So that's why
Here's one.
I think they did.
It blew up in his face.
So,
Copy that.
for the record, Black Maple sold Seal Harbor the lot, it's detailed in my letter, per the deed, in 2014. The original approval for the 6-lot development was 2005, with the subsequent A&R plan filed at the end of 2005. So, that lot sat there with nobody being notified after it was created, signed off on by the planning board, and recorded at the registry of deeds for
10 years.
10 years, plus or minus. That's where we are. Then it was sold off to Seal Harbor, and then after that, Mr. Pitterino purchased the parcel. But this lot has always been in Black Maple's Development's ownership for the whole time.
Yeah, so we had no resources, or, the economy crashed. We held on to it until it was time to do something.
And we can go back and forth with what MISA thinks and what all this kind of stuff, but we're in front of them. So if they come back and say, yeah, go ahead, we have to assume that everything was clear. If they're saying, no, you can't go ahead because of this agreement, well, then we'll look, cross that bridge when we get to it. But I don't think we need to sit here pointing fingers and,
No.
giving each other barks until we hear back from
I
them.
think maybe town council ought to look at this.
The conservation restriction, let me just check the order of conditions. I mean, the order of conditions relies on the MISA permit, and this is actually the order of conditions for the next door property, but it says, the proposed plans for the house cannot be changed without prior permission from the commission and cannot be changed to impact the CR on this site. So that was the condition that you would be putting on these various lots before they got subdivided, but the order of conditions would follow even if it's subdivided out. So, you know, there is a question of how MISA is gonna see this, because the maps have changed, and their thoughts may have changed on how to do this. So the question is, first, we just let them ride, or do you want me to call in and express any kind of concern? And then the other issue is what kind of resource areas out there, for starters. And
Personally,
it's,
I think a letter from the Conservation Commission is gonna have a lot more merit than, you know, us sending this for these guys applying to them. It's, you know, if you state what was permitted back then, 6 lots. He got 6 lots, he snuck a 7th by, now we're going for number 8. It's
Well,
not right.
so,
This letter from Misty says that they need a limit of work added, showing no work within the conservation restriction area, which is this,
Well, that's their, okay, yeah, that's their
This
lot.
plot.
Yeah.
so that's their concern, that you're outside of.
No, that's their comment. That's a comment from their.
but presumably they would send you the same.
Right, and I showed a limit of work, and, yeah.
But there should be something that was agreed from the planning board as far as no more than 6 lots.
I believe they were all A&R lots from, there was no subdivision
Yeah, I don't think
roadway,
planning board ever
so
did anything with this.
There'd be no conditions tying the development of those lots. Like I said before, these are all approval not required lots, so they have frontage and lot area, and that's it. Planning board signs off on it, owner takes it to the registry of deeds, gets recorded, lot created. Nothing to do with conservation, board of health, it's not a buildable lot at that point, it's just a lot.
Sorry.
But there's, in my mind, issue of fact that there was, initial agreement was only 6 lots.
Exactly.
But it
So
says,
that's,
if there's any
that's where I'm
change,
coming from.
So they're looking for basically an amendment.
Right, because you have 7.
To the-
why-
You have 7
these
now.
people benefit from the 7th lot, and we can't benefit from the 8th?
You
It says-
benefit from the 7th, he
The
sold
lot was
lot,
sold
he
by
sold it,
Black
he
Maple
made his money,
Development, they profited on an additional lot, which they weren't supposed to have out of the original development.
well, it
There's been
says,
benefit.
well, it says if any change is made to this agreement, they have to be notified and approve of that change. It doesn't say you cannot ever.
Correct,
Thing.
which makes it seem odd that lots were created in 2005, but MISA and the commission
yeah,
were
but
never
there's a whole
notified.
bunch of other land involved in this with the agreement. That's
Correct,
where
yeah,
I'm
there was only
coming from.
90-something acres, yes.
So somehow, this just doesn't make sense to me.
What part of it, I'm sorry?
The
The 8th lot or the 7th lot? Or any of it?
7 lots when it was supposed to stay at 6.
The
Yeah.
conservation restriction itself will not change. You're not going over the line, right? The CR line. And one of the properties was already and was permitted over the CR line to start with, so that wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
So, you know, the conservation restriction is not being changed.
Right.
And I just don't know if you want to try to somehow get involved in the MISA permit and what the heck they want to do.
See, I don't think that's
Or,
her
you know,
job.
it's-
I mean, we're concerned also about the conservation restriction area, not necessarily about the other lots and subdividing. That's the thing, we're not.
I guess basically, my opinion, and I don't know what the board members are, is that there's more research that's got to be done on all of this before we commit to sending a letter to Natural Heritage, or even agreeing to the plot business. In the meantime, somebody can go out and review the connection, if there is one. That would be agreeable.
Yeah, because that might,
Well,
That would
Yeah.
stop things, or,
It certainly sounds like a third party will be necessary, but
Yeah.
we should certainly go out and have a look as well.
From a logistical standpoint, if we're 14 days into MISA and we don't meet for another 14 days, if the letter's gonna happen, that would need to be decided. Like, I agree, I would like more
Yeah, because they're,
information, and it's a lot to digest, and there, there's kind of the agreement, and the back history of 7 lots versus 8 lots. But for me, it comes down to the resource area. MISA is, they're gonna look at it under their purview. I'm not really sure, I'm ready one way or the other to say yes or no. I'm absolutely concerned about the conservation restriction, and habitat. We keep hearing about bears in everybody's yard, and, there's nowhere for bears at the high school. Anyway, anecdotal, but at any rate, I agree with Jim that I don't feel like I have enough information to say
one thing
way or the other.
that has not been done in accordance with the conservation management permit is you're supposed to have the permanent bounds put up where the CR meets the property lines, all along the back of those properties, and that hasn't been done. So that,
That should be done first
That should
before,
be done.
so that they know.
So I did call MISA to see if they, how they felt about that, and the person was on vacation, said, well, we'll have our meeting first, and then I'll get back to you. But that is probably information that they don't have yet about them being set, so that could just kick their 14 days down. But I can call them and say, the commission has some issues. I'm not sure what their regulatory timeframes are. Do they have to issue? It's an amendment
they have
within
90
30 days? Yeah.
If
They say they usually do it in
everything's done
30.
order,
They need more
it's-
information. They
if
can-
Well, that's
it's not
the-
cut and dry, they'll go 90 days.
Then that's the next, yeah.
Yeah.
I would think, Amy, that would be that there's not clarification on some issues that we feel needs to be clarified, and not to issue the okay to go ahead at this point, I would think, would be a fair.
The thing that I have an issue with is if these lots were limited to 6, and this was supposed to be conservation land, which would be our purview, it would have been marked that way.
It wasn't going to be conservation land.
Right, so if it's not conservation land, it's really not up to us whether or not it's developed. That's
Who
the thing.
holds the CR on the land?
That land was meant to not be disturbed. That plan,
Yeah, but it
the
doesn't-
natural heritage plan specifically shows which
Open
areas are being
space.
disturbed. Just because it's not gonna be owned or maintained by the town, those areas were shown to not be clear cut, to, be transformed from forest to lawn area.
So their no-take decision was based on 6 lots.
Was based on that land
And now
disturbance. That's shown on that plan,
But
not
the
just
thing is, the lots weren't marked that way, or,
Well, no, that's all graded out. That shows all the disturbance, it shows all the septic systems,
no, but I
The
mean. on
conservation
deed
management
of-
permit refers to,
refers to
I
that
think,
plan.
I think it's to that
It's
plan,
that sheet right there.
which has been amended for the 7th lot, and now would be amended for an 8th lot. So
I think
it's a process
Yeah, I think there's some research that needs to be done on this before we can even consider.
in terms of what, though?
So I just want to be
I
mean,
clear,
it's-
like, what did that preserving it to 6 lots do with the rest of the property that wasn't developed? That's
Private ownership, undeveloped.
Undeveloped private ownership.
It was
So-
all one lot.
So how,
And now
I'm
it's 3
familiar
lots.
with the conservation restriction, it's very clear, it's on a deed, people know it. How are we supposed to control a private owner?
We don't. MISA does.
Visa does, so it's their purview as to whether or not that's appropriate. I just don't see where we have any teeth in this.
Your
decision.
teeth comes from the fact that the order conditions, and I'd have to look at all the individual order conditions, did say that you need to set up the CR, and it's based on 6 lots.
Oh, so it's,
But the
So-
CR
all
doesn't
sort of a-
include this lot, does it?
But it included the agreement,
not.
so in the documentation I provided, I gave you the 4-page natural heritage approval. Then I gave you the town's conservation restriction agreement, which was signed by the commission at that time. I know it wasn't this board specifically, maybe not all the members here at that time, but the commission signed off on that idea of only 6 lots, trading off for X amount of acres being put into restriction.
But I understand that, but if we sign off with that type of agreement, we how do we
I think it needs to be
preserve
researched.
it?
I think we need to,
Like open space or
the order
something would be the
conditions,
mechanism
which is
now,
really the only
I'm assuming.
thing, you know,
Order
you
of
can comment that to
Mm-hmm.
MISA. But the order of conditions just says that the pros, plans can't be changed without prior permission from you guys, and cannot be changed to impact the CR. And the CR line is not gonna be changed.
CR line is right here, okay, when that's, MISA says that anyway.
But which order of conditions are you referring to?
This,
I'm talking about the town of Littleton Conservation Restriction Agreement.
this is for
The
204,
10 to 12
this is
page
for
document.
204-564, it's the order of conditions, for
For
what was one lot.
what was one lot.
Yeah, so
Okay.
this is your order of conditions.
So for-
Actually, because, sorry to say, the files are a mess. And it was like lot 1 and lot 2, and everything's in each other's files.
But I'm saying, I'd like the commission members to read the decision and read the conservation agreement. It's about 15 pages. I provided copies with the letter.
I think we gotta bring this hearing to a close for the time being until we can get some definitive answers.
Mr. Chairman, in that light, we're prepared to request a 4-week extension to a set date and time that Amy can come up with.
Okay. That acceptable?
Yep.
Do we want to?
So you want to do a site walk, I would assume?
Yeah, I think,
Friday, 2:30?
Sidewalk.
2:30?
So you want to go not for, no, where are we?
Not
The
next-
second one in
Not
October?
the next meeting, basically.
Not the 25th, but the first one in October.
I don't have your schedule
I don't know
memorized,
when
I'm
that is
sorry,
either.
but it's not the next meeting. If you want to come up with, I mean, it's supposed to be a set date and time, but, you know, if you want to determine it and let the minutes reflect that, it's fine. To the next, not to the next meeting, but to the second meeting at 8 o'clock.
One more, is the commission gonna vote to have a third-party consultant brought in to verify? the
somebody's
delineation?
got to pay for that along the way.
Well, and
The commission has the
so,
right-
so there's 3 things, the site walk, to set that up, and if you can do it after the 25th, I can go with you. And then
Want to be there?
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
I just like to listen.
And because it applies to another thing we'll be talking about tonight, whether or not there's a commitment to set up the bounds that were part of the conservation management permit along the
Yes.
property
Now,
lines.
whose responsibility would that be?
That was supposed to have been a fence with stuff on it originally. That's what
Oh,
was discussed.
originally, it stepped back to just bounds on the property lines and at corners.
I think there was a fence that was supposedly gonna be discussed, so no, people weren't going over it, if I remember correctly.
I think the trees were supposed to be at a discount.
Okay, so you were gonna say that.
Well, we'll
and
get
then
that too, but I-
about
we-
the,
they-
third party.
Black Maple understands that that's the responsibility, they're willing to do it, but it's like, they're.
So
maybe
it's
iron
not,
out
it's
the
not
details.
property you control anymore. So the main reason I'm asking this is because one of the properties is coming in for certificate of compliance.
Right.
Everything's fine, except for there's no bounds on it. So,
But what we talked about today.
would you be
where's-
willing to issue the certificate of
where's the-
compliance with Mr. Berger's word that
And where's the
he's,
bound going? We talked about the bound, there was one
is going
bound.
on the property line in the CR?
But one of them in the septic system,
And,
saying,
and, yeah, unfortunately, it takes a turn on Mr. Jensen's property.
The septic system, yeah.
So I don't know if that really needs to be marked bound or not. It's not much of a turn, but it's a turn. But it is in the mode part of the septic system,
So
as approved.
I feel like, I don't know, my opinion on this is I'd be hesitant to issue a certificate of completion with something, important, not there, but it's obviously not the property owner's fault because it was under Black Maple. It seems like, going back to the MISA and the letter, maybe you could make a phone call to MISA and discuss that the boundaries have not been marked. People have lived in their homes for.
I told them that, they said, basically, oh my, she's on vacation.
Okay.
I said, okay, I'll get back to you after
Within 14 days.
we've had the discussion, yeah.
I mean, if more discussion may need to be had,
Yeah,
Well, a property owner could also hire a surveyor and mark the bounds. I mean, it's not something that only a
Should have been,
developer could
But
do.
it should have
but
been
it shouldn't have
done.
been, it shouldn't be at their
And-
expense. Surveyors aren't
That's
free.
between-
Surveyors aren't free.
That's between them. Somebody, they'll figure out. We're not supposed to just, or we shouldn't decide who's gonna do what. They just needs to be done, and either the property owner or the developer could do it. It's easy, surveyor could do it, it's marked on a plan, you can measure it out and put a bounds. It's not
Okay.
hard.
I thought I heard that Black Maple was responsible for doing
Well,
it, so that
well,
was.
But they
yes,
Initially-
but.
They don't own the property
But they
anymore.
don't own the property
So
anymore.
it's something that just fell through the cracks, basically.
Got it.
Yeah, but it's, I mean,
10
it's
years
easy to
out.
do.
Yeah,
That's
no,
the
I
problem.
That'll be
get it.
fought out by the.
And I keep pointing, I had the discussion with Mr. Jensen, who's the property owner, who was looking for a certificate of compliance. And I said, basically, it's time or money. If he wants to go out and survey it himself at his own expense right now, you can issue a
Right.
certificate of compliance. If he wants to wait for Mr. Berger to do it, then, he's gonna wait, so.
Okay.
As of right now, we need to move on.
Not the rest of them?
You could do your two properties, so it'd be two.
Well, one corner's on a septic, so.
That's a middle one. And this is more of a natural heritage issue, but I think they could probably, theoretically, that septic system slope shouldn't be mowed. It should be let go, but you can talk to the next one. Yeah, it's growing up. So potentially there's 3 markers. One on each property line, then the one in the, where it takes the bend.
So we could do the site walk when you come back, since it's
Yes.
gonna be 4 weeks.
Yep.
So the week of the 25th? Right. Any preference?
Probably Friday.
Oh.
It's Friday
The 29th?
afternoon works for me. Morning is tough. I can adjust, but
Yeah, yeah, won't work for me either.
I'll be away.
Actually, I could do Wednesday, too.
We could also, if need be, do 2. We might have to do 2 to get enough people, because Carl and Sarah might want to see this too.
Well, yeah.
that's, so far away.
Well, I hate to drag you out there 3
So
times,
Sarah
but,
won't be back until 1st of October, basically.
yeah.
If we,
Well, she may be in and out, but,
if we wait that long, can we get everybody, everybody in one? you know?
well, you're already into, is it October 4th? I forget when the next meeting is. I, of course, wrote down the wrong things on the agenda.
October 9th? Would be 2
Columbus
Mondays
Day,
from the
though. Do we
25th.
have it on Columbus Day?
No,
No.
we won't have it on Columbus Day.
So that's
I think
the
the ninth.
second, but then we'd have
16th
2
and
meetings in
20th.
a row?
No.
16th would be
16th and
the next.
30th?
Okay.
I'd have to go look.
Yeah, 16th and 30th are the Mondays, if we don't do the 9th.
If you don't have a holiday in there someplace.
Well, yeah, the 9th
That's
is
the
the,
9th.
Yeah,
The-
Columbus.
yeah, 9th is the holiday.
Okay.
Well, do you want to set one? Do we get anybody for Friday the 29th?
I can't do that.
It sounds like Rachel's out.
I am, yes.
Potentially, I could do like a late afternoon on the 29th.
But you'd be like 5 o'clock, Anna?
29th. It could be 4. 4:30?
4:30 sounds doable.
4:30 to 5. 5 o'clock is fine with me, too.
Once daylight
29th,
saving
I won't be
change.
here, so.
After, it's like the
Yeah.
5th
Yeah,
or
it's
6th,
hard.
yeah.
November.
Uh,
I think it's like
So-
November, isn't it?
Shall we say
What's that?
Friday the 29th at 4:30?
Yeah, it's the 5th or 6th, I was looking at the other day.
And I'll see if I can get Sarah and or Carl, or do a second time.
Yeah, like
Okay.
maybe like that first week of October or something, if
Yeah.
that's when Sarah's.
Should we go out 3 meetings then, if we're not going to?
No, because if we do it the
it'll still-
29th,
Okay,
you
so
still have time.
29th, okay. So that's.
Yeah, because the following meeting would be the 16th of October.
Anyway, so you have that.
Oh, because you got the, 9:20. All right, so 9:29 at,
Do you want to do 5 or do you want to do 4:30?
5 is fine.
I would say 4:30 if you can.
Because it's going to get
It's
dark.
gonna,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
oh,
oh,
yeah.
it's, yeah.
I start
even
thinking about
without-
that again.
So,
And you gotta see those little drainage pads.
4:30.
yeah, we'll bring your spotlight, right? We want to see them. We want to see.
So,
what-
7
no,
o'clock's
wanna-
good for you,
yeah,
right?
7, yeah.
Okay.
Could go with
So there's
that.
nothing staked right now. Do you want anything staked? The wetland flags are there.
Well,
The conservation
Amy,
restriction
you
line.
can-
You
What's your
can kind of
recommendation?
tell where you're going out there. There's a couple bound markers,
Yeah.
maybe the corner of the house or something. What have you got on there? I forget.
The driveway line and then the house.
The driveway
Yeah, the
line's gonna be
proposed
pretty
house.
obvious.
That's true. House and septic area?
Okay.
We've got to move along.
Yeah. Okay.
One last thing on behalf of your butters. Where does the commission stand with regards to the third-party review? If we're gonna push this out 4 weeks, seems like it'd be a good opportunity to get somebody in there to review the wetlands line. It's a big issue. It's either an ILSF or it's a bordering vegetative wetland, which had totally huge implications on the project. I don't think it's something that can be overlooked at this point. And if we're showing it as ILSF on the plan with a buffer zone, I mean, that's totally incorrect according to DEP standards. And there's no reason the commission should accept that without a third-party review. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't have a third-party review on this. There's record plans calling the wetland a BVW, which would include the 50-foot buffer zone at this point, so, I mean, that's gonna totally define the development of this lot.
Yeah, I don't know what everyone else feels, but I do feel like there should be another review.
There should be, but
Well, I didn't think
But
we were
somebody has to-
accepting, we're not accepting anything tonight. I thought we wanted to see it. And then third party at that point, but I'm not opposed if we want to just,
Amy, you got any thoughts?
We discussed this a little bit at the field, and frankly, it's with time and money again. You know, if we go down this track, you know, in a couple weeks, or in a month, we'll be back here, may or may not have a definitive finding, which you're probably gonna wanna argue with, and then we do the third-party review. So now we're 2 months down,
It's better to decide now.
or
than-
you just bite the bullet and do it
Well, from
now.
what Anna said, you're not bought this, you can't make the decision yourself.
Right.
You know, not that I want to pay extra fees, but, you know, if you're all now saying that a site walk by you will not make the decision, our decision is being challenged, and some of the data, or some of the things I've seen out there, although, you know, I see concentrated flow going down the hill, somebody else might see bank. You know, we talked about bank today, you know, the bank was half inch or an inch?
Well, the
you know?
bank's kind of like this.
You know,
The V.
so, you know, banks I've dealt with are, you know, the Merrimack, you know, so a little bit different perspective here. But the point being, if you don't feel comfortable making that decision,
Yeah.
I don't know what we can argue.
You're gonna need either expertise on bank or expertise on ILSF. You
Right.
could go
Which we are not.
either way. And that's exactly what a third-party review would do.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on the applicant of whether he wants to speed it along and have it dragged out for another additional month or two.
I don't think the decision's gonna be accepted no matter, you know, without it, is where I'm, by the commission or
if
the.
we challenge
abutters.
it, then
The commission, you
it's
know.
going to be challenged anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I guess it's who's gonna pay for it, and we're not going to.
We already paid for it once.
Pay for it again.
No, the owner would have to pay for it.
It's clear, it's pretty clear in your bylaw
Yeah.
who pays for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
The
I mean,
applicant.
do you want to agree to that tonight?
Okay.
So that means you'll have to find somebody to review it.
Well, why don't you come up with a few names and get some price, and then we can work on a scope. If any chance we can do this before 7 o'clock tomorrow night?
She's going on vacation.
Agree on the scope. And I'll be in touch by email, but it's gonna be easier if I'm actually here. So let me,
Getting quotes that quick.
Yeah, yeah.
let's get the
That's-
names, figure out what the general scope is gonna be, and then you can go out and get
Yeah.
the cost of the towns, how you prefer to do it, or do you wanna give them a specific, do you have any recommendations for?
You've used in the past, that you, I mean.
I mean, the butters would feel more confident if it was,
Come from the conservation, not.
the commission was,
Right, but if the commission,
Or that's in the
if
process.
we have someone that's gonna cost us $2,000 and they have someone that's gonna cost us $8,
Exactly,
Where's it
so
go?
I think I threw out Oxbow, I threw out Mary Trudeau or Mary Rimmer.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any other names.
Brian Butler?
That's Oxbow, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mutually agreed upon, you know.
Goddard Butler Consulting, they're reasonable. They do a lot of big projects.
Yeah.
I know they're reputable. Reputable.
Why don't we discuss it and get
Who's
back to
wetland
you?
preservation? Are they defined too, was that, or is that?
So,
Yeah, I couldn't remember, they were involved in some of the old stuff,
okay.
but,
And not to annoy the commission, but the final thing with the MISA correspondence, you're gonna have Amy
I will call them
reach out to
tomorrow.
them and let them know that there's
There's an issue here.
Put a hold
questions or
on it for
issues,
the time.
dissatisfaction with the process or something, just to let them know so they extend their process to 90
Yeah.
days, so we don't get a snap decision from
Yeah.
them. I mean, that,
And
the abutters would appreciate that.
Where, no. we should be permitted to get the same review they had, you know? Dragging it out to drag it out.
Well, I'm not trying to by having a third-party review.
No,
So
no, I understand that. I say, Mesa made the decision all by themselves last time, and I think they're fully qualified, and that was accepted. I think they're fully qualified to make it by themselves this
When
time.
when I talked to them, and the woman was on vacation, they basically wanted, and I pointed out that the bounds had not put in.
Yeah.
They said, oh, well, we need to take care of that. I said, well, let's see if we're gonna take care of it anyway. We don't need to have 3 hammers hitting you on the head, we can just do 1. So,
Yeah.
there's that piece also.
Okay.
So why don't we keep the Friday the 29th site walk, just in case? You're gonna wanna see it anyway, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the 204-564-85A Hartwell Certificate of Compliance, sounds like you're not ready to issue that until this
I
bound
would
thing is.
agree with that. Thank you.
Not yet.
So you might wanna grab Mr. Berger before he gets out to the parking lot.
Good night.
Did you guys all sign in? I think I saw most of you.
Okay. Now we've narrowed this, cleared the audience.
Feel lonely now.
Very happy.
Gonna pull some people in for the parking lot?
Project discussion, 323 King Street, 204-854, project change discussion.
Good evening.
Good evening. I gotta talk to Amy about putting those people longingly in front of me. Took your advice, I'm taking down my barn.
Oh, yeah, this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you guys approved my house a couple weeks back. This is Bill Goddard, Joe Bryan. Bill's my new builder. So he convinced me that I could take down the barn and be outside the 100-foot buffer zone. That was obviously important to you guys. Meanwhile, I'll get my trailer out of the back, the way I'm squeezed in right now. So I think the only issue, Amy, was debris and,
So I was assuming this might just be an insignificant change, or, minor modification, however you want to put it, for the demolition of the barn. And we discussed that any of the demolition debris and stuff would be in areas that were already,
We're gonna pull outside the buffer, obviously.
So the barn's getting destroyed and rebuilt?
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh,
And is it also going to serve as a garage, because your driveway's going up to it?
no, I don't think so, no. There's gonna be 5 stalls in there for horses, and a wash stall. And maybe a tack room, so maybe 4 stalls, a wash stall, and a tack room.
so if I'm looking at this correctly, it's just going to be dismantled within the 100-foot buffer, but then rebuilt outside of it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't that the concern to get out of the 50, because moving the barn to the outside of the 100 will allow the dwelling to move outside of the 50, right?
Well, no,
Wasn't that
the
the case?
dwelling actually was, we moved it outside of the 50, but then we moved it 5 feet from the barn. So then the building department said, nope, you have to fireproof the barn. So I said, the barn's 200 and something years old.
Is that something, is that
He
something,
could see it from 50,000 feet away.
is that something that's all pegged and what have you?
No.
It has a few old beams in it, but.
Yeah, we're gonna try
a
to
lot of
save
it-
them too, but, yeah,
There's a few old ones, but not
Yeah.
many left.
yeah.
It's all
You're more than welcome to walk through.
Yeah, we're gonna save as many as we can.
No, I'm just curious, if
No,
it
it
being that
wasn't.
old.
It was probably one section, it was probably originally, probably a small barn there, I would guess, because the left side of it has a lot of posting beam, real posting beam. Well, not a lot, a little. And then
The right side was new.
is all, it's all,
Yeah.
it's like probably built from Parley in the 30s or something, I would guess.
Yeah.
And is that a breezeway
No.
connecting?
No, my architect drew it like that, but it's gonna be 20 or 25 feet now, so I'm probably just gonna have a small porch off the house, or a little deck, or, something like that, so it won't connect.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's sort of a worst case.
Yeah,
I
this
see.
it'll be a walkway, obviously.
Yeah, just a walkway.
Okay.
Good question. They're all the same questions.
Told you.
So would this be just a field change?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody want to make a motion to accept a field change?
Nope.
I'll make a motion to accept the field change.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
You guys should go home now.
Oh,
Oh.
Thank you, guys.
Did you guys want these back?
Sure.
Do you need one, Amy, for your,
Sure, I'll take one.
I'll give you a couple.
I think I've got one, but,
Thank you, folks.
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night.
thanks.
okay. Enforcement order discussion, Durkey Farm, Mass DEP 204-772.
Wait, it's not Brian.
I am not Brian.
Road 204-817, lots 7, and 204-804, lot 30.
Good evening. I am not Brian Gaudreau. Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates. Here to continue discussions on the last two enforcement orders and one other item. So on 7:30, the reason they were in the enforcement order was their proximity to the farmer's pond and trying to understand what was going on there. When last we were with you, we had successfully drained the farmer's pond, and it's stayed down. We've been continuing to track it. We took some survey elevations on it just today, and it's maintaining its elevations. It does come up a little bit when it rains, and then it goes back down. So, we think that it was an anomaly. We're, still speculating what the reasons were that it held. I think it's a combination of many things that aligned. But what we know, I think, now is that it's not groundwater fed, and it's not. We haven't seen any instance in which it's raised without rain. So it's stayed static or dropped in any times of.
You want to take into account it's gotten dry again. Since August,
Yeah.
it's gotten dry again. So any water that was flowing wouldn't
But
necessarily.
we also have years and years and years of experience from before where the area wasn't inundated with groundwater. So in any event, we think
The
that.
road wasn't there, though. The road wasn't there either.
Right, but I'm talking about if it was spring fed or groundwater fed. What we had was, we have had a depression there. We had a saddle that was off to the west that was around elevation 263. And yes, the roads here now, we've got a slight decrease in the subcatchment that feeds the area. But other than the existence of the road, so this was the pre-development subcatchment, and this is the post-development subcatchment. So we don't see any. There's definitely not an increase that would cause the water, and we don't feel that it's groundwater fed, other than the farmer's pond itself, and maintaining that elevation around 262. So the area that we're this is 7 and this is 30, and the areas that we're talking about requesting the commission release the enforcement orders on is to do the grading proximate to the septic system and the grading proximate to the side yard of 30. The septic system is in on 7. The only thing we haven't done is complete the grading to be able to meet the breakout requirements under Title V. We just need to grade that and then seed it, stabilize it, and we'll be able to close out the Board of Health. We'll be able to get a COC from the Board of Health on the septic system for Lot 7, and would like to start 30. Haven't started that yet. And Amy wasn't comfortable, without, obviously, the commission releasing the order to be, the enforcement orders to be able to do that work, so.
Is there any, I know that there a question about whether or not the vegetation was growing back sufficiently. Isn't a portion of the overflow area in the back of that lot, and that's why it's part of the enforcement order? Is it the pond extended up to here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so do you have a sense of how that lot's growing back?
Right now, we have is it frag or,
There's
cattails.
umbrella sedge and reed canary grass growing up between the two sets of
David Cowell,
in some
right.
areas.
David Cowell thought that once our wetland scientist, once the water was drained from the pond, that would begin dying off, because it's an emergent wetland vegetation that was thriving because of the fringe water that was right there. Take that away, and it's not going to be there. So.
So I don't see
Bet on
any.
that one. I've got an awful lot of hay fields that got that stuff in it.
Huh. Well, I don't see any advantage of keeping the enforcement order on those properties, do you?
The only question I have is how are you going to resolve the flooding of the pond again? If that happens in the spring, which means I'm talking about some sort of a pipe or something across under the road or something.
Yeah. Well, we've approached the planning board with the installation of a pipe at 263. Put it in an easement down to here, down to lot on the side of lot 11. And that replaces the function that the saddle had. The saddle at 263, if this area filled up, it would have spilled there, and the pipe would do the same thing. So what
Can you
we're...
point to where that is on there, the original, isn't that pre-development?
So you get a 264, 264, 262, 262, so there's saddles right there.
No, that's my only concern, is I want to know that something's been worked on or in
So-
the process of happening.
The planning
But
board...
whether or not it involves those two properties is the
Well,
question.
the
Because
trouble
there'd
is
still be,
if it floods, it does if they haven't done anything.
well, that's a good point.
So, the planning board was interested in that because they wanted to see how that might affect the status of this area as open space. So our contention was that this was, we weren't using this as a drainage area because we're not taking developed portions of the lot and putting it into there. So we're not using this for attenuation. And that this is just a belt and suspenders safety in case this floods again
Oh, I think
in
it's
frozen
going to.
ground condition or anything. So what we've done is we've presented drainage calculations which look at the pre-development and the post-development and understand when this overtops, both from a rate standpoint during the 100-year storm. And what we're showing is that it just comes up to that 263 mark in the pre-development, and it just comes up to the 263 in the post-development and the 100-year storm. So our contention is that it doesn't enter into any of our hydrology calculations, and that it is that event that happens above and beyond anything that's within our required analysis. But would, if it was engaged, would stop the flooding to the level that it was this spring. So it would protect 7 and 30.
Yeah.
So what's the gap between what the elevation is now of the road and 263? Like,
10 feet.
This is 270, 272, 270, 268. So then this is
266 is here.
266, 260.
Because it's only 6 feet, 6 feet of play you have to put a pipe in, right, under the road?
Yeah. It works with
Joe, is that a
the,
new memo, or is that the old one?
this is the September 7th. So this is to the planning board.
Can I eventually get a copy of that, or?
Yeah, I was gonna leave this with the commission.
Because I read, that- do we want a box culvert for wildlife passage?
That's almost a moot point. The third-party review is going through this now, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you need to have the discussion now, because
Okay.
no one's even agreed what size you need, and then
Right.
we can worry about if you need weirs or boxes, or, you know, the, not ornamental pieces of it, but the
Right, visual or,
ecological side, as opposed to just the
Well,
fire.
How long before you would be actually doing something about a drainage pipe or box culvert or whatever you come up with?
We'd probably obviously we'd do it before final payment, because we've
No,
got
but
to
I
cut the
mean-
binders, so I don't know that you do.
Is it gonna be in the next month? Or are we looking 2 months, or are we looking next spring?
I think the way that the planning board is, they're quite satisfied with the results of the drain down. So they're now looking at this, they've turned it over to their peer reviewer. I think that once the peer reviewer says, okay, from a hydrology standpoint, that we're gonna have the green light.
I mean, we just passed Mr. Bullet in the last 24 hours or 48 hours as far as getting a hurricane up here. And that would have filled that right up.
well, the thing is, though, the properties that they want to lift the enforcement order on,
Are adjacent to it.
adjacent to it, but they don't have really anything to do with the solution to it. So I don't see any
But how you
problem.
gonna-
They're gonna
how
have to
you-
put the pipe in anyway, no matter what they do with these other two properties. And they're still under the agreement, or, you know, they're not
But
gonna
the
have final
grading for
sign
the other
off.
properties could change if the third-party review comes back with something you're not expecting regarding the hydrology. Like you said the word speculation, anomaly, you know, I'm still not, like, do you know where the water's coming from? Is that a question you can answer? I mean, I heard you say a few different things.
Well,
You didn't
originally,
mention the
the water came from some of the surrounding roadways, so
Right,
it
but
wasn't
what if-
indicative of this. Now what we're seeing is basically a reaction to the rainfall events that happen. So if an inch of rain falls, then an inch of rain over this subcatchment
No,
comes
because there was
into
no
this area.
sediment deposited in the area that flooded adjacent to the farm pond. And there's a structure that exists here, and there was a thought that there was like a spider web of pipes coming into it, or 1 or 2 pipes coming into it. Is that, like, have you guys checked that out yet?
We've checked it out, but it's,
And, like,
it's,
GPR or cameras or pulling like, how have you checked it out?
just by opening it and seeing that it's a spider of pipes, and that to me is an area that the farmer drew water from, and it was
Sure.
in that way. There was,
Right, from
so
groundwater.
so
groundwater.
the only, I mean, there's been some speculation with regards to there being drain tiles out here, and a system of drain tiles that
Sure.
was lowering the water table. And when we've come upon drain tile systems in the past, it's mostly in apple orchards, and it's on a hillside in which there's positive drainage. There's no positive outlet here possible for a subsurface system that would have effectively lowered the drain system, that you know was systematic and that we interrupted. We know of this structure, and there was one other structure that was similar, but not something that was interconnected, in which there was drawdown of water table. So I don't think that we've taken a drain tile system and destroyed it, and therefore brought the water table back up. All of our indications on additional testing that we had with the Board of Health, the Board of Health was concerned with this, and the same concept of, all right, was there a change in the water table? They wouldn't release 5, 6, and 7 unless we did additional testing. They came out, witnessed that additional testing, and that
Test
testing.
pitting?
Yes, and
Borings?
deep test, just back up. That corroborated the original testing, and Board of Health released those designs to go forward. So they've kind of closed their file on the groundwater issue with regards to it changing. So we don't think there's anything out here that's relative to that.
Well, I've heard from different parties that Sid Durkee had done a lot of tile draining in there in one way or another. But anyway,
Well,
I guess.
The Board of Health representative said that perforated pipes were being dug up out there during construction. I mean, they were kind of all over the place, so there was something
The
going on in
network,
there.
and it seems to be, my concern is there's a network and it's draining to this area, and I feel uncomfortable lifting the adjacent lots until we have an answer as far as the flooding, because it could impact.
But what if we can't get an answer? What, I used
There's gonna be-
speculation and an anomaly,
Mhm.
and it's past history. We weren't there, we weren't
Sure.
recording the events, we weren't
I just
measuring
want
and
I
witnessing.
just want a solution to the problem. And the problem is you've got to have a pipe going across underneath the road.
Then let's put the pipe in.
I mean, basically.
But we need the third-party review to be complete first.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
I think
until.
we're jumping the gun.
To some extent, I wouldn't have a problem with them doing their finished grading just so as it gets seeded before we run out of season.
The issue with Lot 7 is you had basically proved, they put in a little retaining wall right behind the house, and put in the septic system. That was all approved, but they need to do some grading because of the breakout area. And at that point, they would have gone below the new silt fence. The original silt fence, limit of disturbance wouldn't be changed. And it was that piece of finishing Lot 7 that I didn't feel comfortable saying, yeah, go ahead, without you guys at least hearing about it. I kind of agree that certainly you shouldn't start Lot 30 until we know what's going on there, but Lot 7 is 95% there already anyway.
Yeah, so it wouldn't make that much of a
And
difference.
it kind of was when all this flooding came out, because, the house was there and the foundation and everything.
Right.
Yeah, 7's eminent, 30 can wait. Honestly, 30, if you look at where we would be working in 30, it was never wet. There are no wetland plants from the high water mark. It was more, the expansion of the wet area was not up here, it was down in here. So if we could finish the septic on 30, it allows us to close it out. 7 rather. And if you want to hold 30 for,
Well, I just
there's
like it.
no point to it, but we'll, no, not here to
Well, I'm
fight
just
with
saying
you
I
either.
want to see an affirmative solution because I don't want to stick the neighbors with it.
So
Yep.
hold 30, and that gives you some leverage, and then we'll see what the third-party reviewer says on the pipe, and we'd formally ask, we'll submit these plans and that report formally and request the commission also approve, subject to that third party,
You agree with
the installation of the pipe.
that?
I do, as long as, obviously you're keeping to the original limit of work on Lot 7, then I would say finish Lot 7, let's get it stabilized.
The original silt fence lot.
The original one.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
of course, yeah. we're
And
not
and
there.
as much of the new silt fence lines you can, because it goes parallel to the wall, and I think it's maybe like another 20 feet or so where you need to, and that's where I was trying to get the idea from Brian of, where are you changing what I'm looking at today? And it wasn't clear to me.
I mean, I think a lot of this was honestly during construction, right, where you don't have a stabilized site, you don't have all your curbing in, all your roadways done, you don't have grass everywhere, you get a lot more runoff when you're under construction than you do when you're stabilized.
There just isn't evidence of runoff. That's the problem I'm having with it. Like, if there was runoff and like Basin 3 is clogged because you had runoff and there was silt in the runoff, and so therefore it's clogged. What we heard 2 weeks ago was the material at the surface was not silt, it was some like algae or biological material. So to me, because there isn't some sort of silt deposit there, it's not indicative to me that it's runoff. And so this is why I'm kind of sticking to this, we still don't know what's going on. Let's let's wait for the third-party reviewers. I mean, hearing Amy's input on lot 7, I mean, if it's truly just a, you know, the limited grading, and that's something Amy feels comfortable with, I might be convinced, you know, as far as that goes. But I really don't think we should be saying we know what's going on, because we don't.
There's also just to clarify on the third party, you have a peer review on Joe's position on Hancock's. Now the board has asking, not your board, the planning board's asking for yet another peer review. So, you know, it's not without some
Well, I think-
review to date.
Are you talking about Green's peer
Yeah.
review? Yeah, so
Yeah.
Green is in engineering, they needed a more of a hydrogeology. Those are two, I mean, engineers are very useful for their own practice, and some, you know, as I'm sure you're aware, some of it intermingles, but, you know, the feeling was very strongly that, you know, someone with a little more of a hydrogeology or hydrology background was also needed, and so there will be different reviews, so, you know, just to clarify that there is a
I
purpose
always
for
go
that
back to say
second
that,
review.
why isn't that imposed at the get-go?
I don't know, I wasn't here.
Has there, I mean, have you guys, aside from opening up that structure, has there been any effort to actually figure out where the waters come from? I mean, has there, I think Julie obviously mentioned it, any,
No, I
has
mean,
that been discussed or
we ran
anything?
different models with an interim subcatchment that could have represented areas of the roadway that before the curbing was installed, and looked at that. We looked at the rainfall data from April and March and April, which were extremely hot.
Do you think
So
that-
we had sufficiency of water. Now, we had potential for frozen ground conditions to be kind of dovetailing on some of that rainfall, to begin the process of having all of that water there. I think we know that we've got groundwater within 24 inches. So we've definitely investigated it, but outside of getting in a time machine and going back and looking at it, it's difficult to put the pieces together. It's a mystery.
Well, I mean, you
Yeah,
should
and
do some geophysical surveying of this area, and especially now that it's dry.
We've done some borings in that area, and we've found a very thick thatch and a good healthy plowed layer of organics, but underlying that is sands and gravel. So it doesn't lend itself to necessarily being impermeable, which just
It's not impermeable at all.
it expands.
Sand and gravel?
Right.
But
Which-
it wasn't
which-
infiltrating.
It wasn't infiltrated. So
Because you got that stuff on top
it
of
just
it.
expands the mystery.
Was there ledge below the sand and gravel, like creating or clay, or nothing that you could tell?
And did you survey the elevations of those pipes that spider in?
We did. And they're 3 feet down.
And we have been asking for hydrogeology at least for 6,
A while now.
8 weeks.
But
Or more.
what within that hydrogeology would you be?
So like a hydrogeologist can look at the landscape and is just better suited to investigate what's going on underneath, more so than an engineer who's looking for, how do I, move the land? It's just different disciplines. It's by
No,
definition,
no,
it's
but we-
within,
Especially when
it's
you
within their
at the
purview.
groundwater input
It
in
is with,
particular.
yeah.
No,
It
I
is within
understand,
their
but
purview.
it's not, I've dealt with a lot of hydrogeologists, and it's not an exact science. It's very difficult to do that. And anytime that a board or commission gets into hydrogeology, it's a tenuous to be able to even with that expertise to understand groundwater flow.
But it doesn't mean you
It's
ignore
not,
the input.
it's not that hard. You can do a network of borings, you can install piezometers, which would be, that would be above and beyond, but you could do network the site with piezometers and take multiple water level elevations of the groundwater, and then you can draw your contour lines.
I understand that.
And you
but-
get a
but-
very good idea of what it's not mystery, it's actually a very prescribed science as far as what the groundwater is doing and where it's flowing.
I mean, that's a good point. However, if it's groundwater or surface water, I mean, the fact is that the general infrastructure might have been destroyed that might have caused this in the first place, first of all. And then, if it has been destroyed, maybe it won't happen again. But if it does, I mean, if it's groundwater, it's going to be difficult to know exactly what to do about it, except for having a drainage way out, which is what we're planning to do. So I'm not sure if knowing exactly where it's coming from really matters at this point. If it is going to overflow occasionally, we can let it drain out of there, but I don't know if knowing exactly where it's coming from will make actually the difference in how it's addressed.
If you model information based on drainage, based on precipitation, instead of a groundwater input, basically garbage in, garbage out. So if your model isn't representative of actual conditions, that's.
But if the model
You have
shows
to
that
size
it's,
the pipe based on groundwater and surface water inputs. Because groundwater might come here, then you add the surface water on top of it, or the
But-
groundwater never does.
How
so.
is a hydrogeologist gonna know what's going to happen with the groundwater? We know where it is today. We know where it was at various times over the past 2 years. And none of what we're finding is saying the groundwater
Well,
rises to
let's
the
give them a
elevation
chance.
265.
Let's give them a chance to let us know. I mean, that's.
Well, they've been engaged,
okay.
so.
But that's
Yeah,
what they're doing.
exactly. I think we're probably getting ahead of ourselves as far as what you can and can't do. It can be done. I mean, it would be excessive, I think, for the site to network the site, but it can be done, and there's
as I said-
forensics that can
as
be
I-
done. So I think the exercise is valuable. I guess getting back to, Jim would like to move it along.
No, but I think the question
Getting
is,
back
once
to what we're
we
trying
have
to
that
do.
information from the HUD, it's gonna give us the size of the pipe, correct?
It'll give us the solution, presumably.
well, the size of the
Hopefully.
pipe, really, because even, I would think we wouldn't do anything different, I mean, in terms of the solution, whether it be groundwater or surface water. Do you think?
But they might have a better handle on the volume they may be getting to deal with.
Right.
And things like the elevation of the pipe need to be determined, because that's gonna be set on more of a wetland
But I-
issue.
It needs to
but I
be
thought the
a
elevation was
6-inch
based
pipe,
on-
or it needs to be a 24-inch pipe.
I thought the base of the elevation was based on the original elevation of the farm pond, keeping it at that level.
Of the farm pond, of
No.
the wetland, of the new wetland.
No, of the farm pond.
No, it was the elevation of the saddle.
The area inside
Which
the
is up-
263.
Yeah, the
260
263,
is
that's
the
what I
elevation.
was,
The
Yeah, we're
farm
not
pond's
gonna,
at
we're not proposing to
262.
change that.
right. So I thought that was set. The base of the pipe would be set at
Well,
that
we
level.
haven't had
But
the
we
peer
don't know the
review yet.
We have
yeah.
no idea.
And we don't know the size
If you
because we
set
don't
it
know
at
the distribution.
263, is the entire area is gonna stay flooded?
Bottom line is, are we gonna release 7 so they can finish grading it for tonight?
Sure.
Sure.
Somebody wanna make a
Yes.
motion to that effect?
I'll
And they've
make a
still got a
motion.
problem to solve.
I'll make a motion to finish Lot 7,
So lift the enforcement order?
lift the
Yeah.
enforcement order on 7, and have them finish whatever they need to finish on 7, but not lift an enforcement order on
Within
30. Is that right?
Within the original silt fence. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah, yeah.
A mosquito.
Mosquito ninja.
What the
I need
heck?
a second.
Do I hear a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And then one last item, we wanted to get the commission's assent to bring spruce to this first set of catch basins, which right now is about 150 feet beyond,
I think it's 200 feet.
200 feet more than what we had previously put as a limit of spruce.
And
that would just-
elaborate as to why.
That would bring us.
Say that
it would-
again?
So if I may, we stopped, you release spruce under the partial release to the stone wall here. And the drainage from here back runs that way and comes down this way, and this piece goes that way. So we stopped paving just after the driveway for 15 to be released. because we didn't want to increase the impervious, which is now draining and going into a temporary basin on 22. And what we'd like to do is take this and continue it down and get so we can build this drainage structure in here, this pond in here, and its swale, and then stop again here, because we don't know what's happening with the remainder of the cul-de-sac with the K parcel pending through the planning board. They may ask us to remove the cul-de-sac and extend the roadway straight through, so we don't want to go any farther down than we need to control the drainage for this leg of spruce here, which is this structure. Not something we're dying to do, it's something that unfortunately is pretty expensive for us to do, but we feel it's a better solution to control this portion of the spruce rather than continue to dump it into the temporary basin on 22.
And you also wanted to build 23?
23.
Is it lot 23, the one that's on the other,
Oh, here? No, 23's up here. We're not.
24, whatever that was?
Yeah, I don't know that is urgent if that's not something the commission wants right now. We weren't looking necessarily to get down here we have plenty of inventory here for now. We just wanted to control this piece here rather than continuing to dump it in here.
And this is obviously our low point in the road. It's a saddle. The road starts to hit back up.
What's your opinion, Amy?
It's a lot of work all the way along the wetland to get in that entire drainage swale down to the basin at the bottom. It was an approved piece of work. So I guess all that work is basically just so you can get 22?
It's not even necessarily a lot we're interested in. We just don't think that's a decent mechanism, using that temporary basin to control the runoff from the sill. It's either work we do now or work we do in the spring. We
Is
anticipate-
it all raw earth right now?
It's wooded.
It's wood?
It's wooded.
Yeah.
Oh, wooded, okay, so it's not uncontrolled.
Back here. It's undisturbed.
No, where
This
you're-
piece here?
that piece
No,
there.
it is. It's graded to gravel for the roadway.
Oh,
We
okay.
stopped the asphalt here for this driveway, and then it runs down here. We put a large berm here.
So it's all
inside of
gravel
our
up to
silt
the
fence.
berm?
So it will go berm, silt fence, stone wall, silt fence and hay bales. Half of it, or a third of it's asphalt, the rest of it's gravel. It hits this berm and then channels into this.
Because I don't know,
And
I'd
the
rather see
part
it
is-
paved before the winter. That's my,
Our view is build it now while it's dry, or build it in the spring while it's wet.
right.
Kind of makes it an easy one for us. We need to build it at some point. We'll be through this inventory over the winter. We'll be looking for additional lots. The less we do in this general area in the spring, we
Yeah.
feel we're better suited. It's growing season,
Well,
we've been there.
Just so you understand, you're talking about paving 200 feet, but disturbing for the stormwater that entire length.
In here.
Just so you know what you're getting, and I will say, you know.
Okay, could you describe more what that work will entail then, the stormwater
Cut
piece
tree-
of it?
Cutting trees and shaping the
Cutting
pond.
trees. We've got
Cut
a long
trees.
swale here, and then the basin is back in here.
So you're gonna be cutting trees, what else?
Grubbing.
Clearing, grubbing.
Grading.
Grubbing.
And then getting that.
Building this detention pond.
So you're gonna be
That's what I'll-
opening that all up for the winter? How are you gonna stabilize, are you gonna be able to seed it or stabilize it before the winter?
Well, we were hoping to do it a couple of weeks ago, but we realized in meeting with Amy that your original approval was up to this line here. She wasn't comfortable releasing this piece without your consent, so now we are at the point, if we can get on it right away, we'll do it. If we can't, then we'll wait, but at least we'll have the option.
We do have, there's a stone wall all along here, that's between the work and the wetlands, which
Which side of the wall you gonna be?
we're on the high side of the wall. So it makes a real nice demarcation. That's kind of how we designed this in that manner, because it was a nice natural or
Or
man-made,
boundary.
but a
And the
board
Phase
boundary.
1 part of Spruce Street is all paved and never had any really serious issues. Basin 2 is a little bit, but the rest of it went in well.
I feel like cutting trees not during nesting season is a good thing. I mean,
That's true.
it's not nesting season now.
No,
It's nesting
yeah.
in the spring,
I mean, it's easier work for us in the fall than in the spring. We're gonna have to build it at some
and it's
point.
wetter in the spring.
Yeah,
That's what
and
we
it's,
saw. This
it's
week, not
not,
the
it's
same
not a, what do you think this would take?
We get 2 weeks up there.
It was already,
And then we
I mean,
can-
as long as it can be
we get it planted.
stabilized
Yeah.
before the winter, like, if you're, hopefully it'll be warm enough to start grass still. I mean, the weather is pretty remarkable right now for
could
for
change.
September, but it could
Yeah.
change, right? Which.
Yeah, but if we're 2 weeks and we're into early October and we get the loam and seed down,
Yeah, you can still see.
we're doing real good.
Yeah, that's why we looked at it a few weeks ago, figuring we might be done by now, but again, it was, you know, we were detailed in our original request for spruce, not realizing that we needed to manage, you know, the 200 or 300 feet of water here. And, you know, it was an oversight on our part, I guess.
I'd like to make a motion.
Wait, just one thing, just so I'm clear, is there a station number to where those catch basins are for
I
however
don't
far
think
you
it's
want
on
to
that
go?
plan. I think if we looked at our master plan
I got it.
tomorrow, we could do it. I think
I
it's
got it.
it's either 12 or 1250. It's not no more than 1250.
12 plus 50.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion.
Does that basin have a number? Sorry, I want to make sure I know exactly what you're approving.
Well, let me ask you this. We have an order of conditions. We have a
Or you
approved
just
subdivision
release-
for
you
the
just
planning
release
board.
the whole
Just
damn thing.
release the thing and we'll stop where we see fit. I mean, it's,
You want to keep the enforcement order on the roads in general, but you can certainly release Spruce, because you got the basins, Basin 2, Basin 3. 5, thank you. Or you can just release the rest of Spruce Street, and they're just not going to build it all right now.
I'd like to release Spruce Street, if I have to, between where they stopped and then where those storm drains.
First set of culverts.
First set of culverts.
Or catch basin.
Catch basins that you mentioned has to lead into that drainage structure. Release that, so you can do that, and then also allow you to start work on the, immediately on that part, but only if you can stabilize it before the winter, that drainage structure.
Basin
Basin 5.
Do I hear a second?
Oh, second.
All those in favor?
Right?
All right.
we discussed what will prevent you or allow you to release the remainder of spruce.
When you
Can we move on?
resolve, when you
You
resolve
want
the.
Sure, fair enough. I just figured maybe you're getting sick of seeing me every 2 weeks. And that brings me to 2 weeks. Do you need us in 2 weeks, or can we wait till we have something to hear from Geo Insight?
Seems
I
like
think
we
you
should
probably
wait to hear.
Wait till
Unless
get-
you got something else going on. I
Yeah.
see Basin 3 is flooded, so nothing's going to happen there. Basin 2 is flooded.
Yeah, Basin 2 is almost drained down. I went out there today, but I'm getting sick of bringing these guys out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Great, thank you.
Yep.
So
All right.
16.
Good night. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Dave, I know they're in the middle of it, but pulling the erosion controls out behind, what was that, 9 and 10 or 8, 9, I can't remember what lots it were. I'm gonna call them mid, but they need to go and split those.
Okay,
They're kind of buried back in there.
just
They're-
cut them open so they,
It's, yeah.
okay, yeah, that's easy for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't
They-
pull
they
them
may
though,
have-
right?
If they can pull them out, great.
If not, just open
They
them
may have been
up.
doing it, and I caught them midstream, but just to.
Okay, I'll work on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Continued public hearing, notice of intent, 10-foot pond. Do you folks realize that Friday, in less than an hour's time, we had an inch of rain?
Last Friday?
We had an inch of rain in that downpour.
Wow.
I was out of town.
Yep.
I saw every damn site on Friday.
I was out of town on Friday.
I was driving in it.
Including
and
I was in Vermont.
You're right, I remember driving and could barely see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to just lay it on the table?
Sure, if you want. That's fine with me.
After all that.
Good evening. I'm William Hall with Stamps and McNary. This is a continued hearing for a notice of intent for 10 Four Pond Road. General overview of what we're looking to do is, this is a isolated land subject to flooding with potential vernal pool, and we're looking to have a driveway come across, fill a section of that to get access to a single-family house in Acton. We went on a site walk on, I forget the date, maybe Amy would have it.
Oh, last Tuesday, I
It was
think.
last Tuesday.
August 29th.
And there was some talk of a potential channel in this area. Our opinion is that there is no channel in that area. Just from an engineering standpoint, the isolated land subject to flooding was determined by using the 7-inch 24-hour storm event. And we say that the overflow elevation is 91.85. That is the topography in that area. And when you run the 7-inch event, it overflows to 91.86. So it almost handles the entire 7-inch event, which is quite a lot of rain. So there's really not any runoff that would come up over here to create any sort of channel in that area. And I'll let Dave speak more to that, but we also heard from the state, and the state didn't have any comments on the project. But if there are any questions, or if you'd like to speak to the physical characteristics.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Well, we were looking, I know there was some interest in there's a swale that runs down the hill, and there's a couple areas where the leaves have been pushed up by water that collects in the low point in the swale. Under the definitions of a stream channel is a definitive channel in the ground. It actually has to be in the ground. The leaves are not considered to be a channel, even if they're pushed up. It's just sheet flow that comes down the hill. It's got a pretty good slope coming down, and there's a couple of valleys where the water collects in the valleys. It's very rocky, and the water is pushing the leaves off the rocks in the ground. But it's not flowing in a definitive channel.
This is the one Carl had a pretty strong opinion about, right? It's too bad he's not here.
And there's also a couple of areas where there's absolutely no evidence of any flow whatsoever for long stretches. I know there's a stone wall that comes across the site, and there's a good 20 feet on each side where there's no evidence of flow at all that would connect it. I think the concern was that it's connected by an intermittent stream channel to a wetland in Acton. There's a big wetland in Acton at the bottom of the hill.
Wait, so you're putting a driveway across it, and how big a culvert are you putting through there? I see a culvert there.
There's two 12-inch, yes, two 12-inch culverts. So the culverts aren't really for flow in the sense of a culvert that has a channel going underneath it. It's more just to maintain the connection to this small pocket of ILSF, because this isn't going to fill up very rapidly like you'd have a channel going underneath the roadway.
Isn't it better to have a larger culvert, less maintenance than two small ones?
Maybe how much cover they gotta put on top of the culvert.
That's precisely it, yep.
You mean, if it was larger, they need more cover?
Yeah.
And you don't have that
No.
leeway?
It gets close, so what we have now is 91.2 roughly is the existing elevation in that area. A 12-inch culvert puts you at 92.5 roughly for the top of the pipe. And the
How
cover,
much fill on top of it?
the highest contour is 94, so it's like 93.8 on top of it. So there's about 1.5 feet over it, and we wouldn't want to go too much thinner than that.
So I think the first question we would think about is whether or not it's ILSF or BVW.
Yeah. I remember it being very difficult to tell. I had a hard time with this one.
I have these pictures here as well from when I went out to the site after, and I took them from, I believe it was up in this area where there was that rocky channel or swale. I know it was further to the side of 57 and came down through here. So the path we walked on.
I mean, there's a clear, like in the topography, as you know, there's like a clear channel feature in the topography, and between that and a few pieces looking like segments. Those are the pieces I'm having the toughest time with.
Yeah. I mean, it was clear in some parts, but in some parts it wasn't. So. And then at the stone wall, it kind of, I couldn't find where it channelized afterwards.
Kind of got diffused.
Yeah.
Actually, about a picture of that area.
I took some pictures too. It was really hard to tell, like afterwards looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
You can't really see, like, picture,
I will
just
also
weren't very
say that
useful to me
The channel does not have to
afterwards.
be continuous from
Yeah.
the ILSF all the way down to the BVW. You just need a stream segment to make it bordering.
How do you figure that? If you have a complete gap of all upland vegetation and everything else, you
You
can't
can
just
have
say
what would
that it's
otherwise
still
be an
connected.
ILSF with sort of a stream segment in it, and DEP will call it
Well,
bordering.
within the ILSF, right, itself.
Yeah, if this is bordering on a stream segment, yes.
I thought you were talking about.
Way down someplace
Yes,
else.
connecting down the hill, segmenting
Yeah.
it on the way down the hill. I know the stream channel is into, out of, or within.
Yeah.
So you're looking at the within part.
No, the out of, I would think. We're looking out of.
Well, the,
It
even where you
depends
had.
where you,
Even where you had the little bit of, yeah, but the out of usually connects to another BVW.
I thought that's what we were talking about, whether if it's out of, if there's a channel leading from it, and at
Right.
least part way out of it.
Right,
then it's
that's what we were
connected to
talking about,
something.
going down the hill, whether there was a continuous channel all the way down the hill.
There were definitely, I would say there are definitely segments going down the hill, and the topography indicates that whether it's obscured by leaves and rocks, the topographic lines indicate there's a
That it
channel
flowed
there.
out, yeah.
And I definitely observed segments, certainly not continuous, but
Yeah.
segments.
I would
Did
agree
you
with
see any
that.
greenery?
Hmm?
Did you see any greenery or moss or anything on the rocks where the water had been going over it?
I don't remember,
And that would be an indication if it was
yeah,
wet,
I can't recall.
but it's been dry.
I mean, I
too.
think, yeah, I mean, it's
Well,
been in the woods.
Yeah, but it could be intermittent though, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
probably-
moss can grow outside of,
Mm.
like, my backyard's not a wetland.
So, I mean, and I know that Carl said that he thought it was channelized.
I just don't know how you say it's not channelized if there's the topography there and you see the segments.
Because the definitions of a stream require a definitive channel in
Mhm.
the ground itself.
Yeah, the topography indicates there's a definitive channel.
The topography just indicates there's a valley that goes down the hill, and everybody that was out there was looking at the leaves that were being pushed up and telling me that the leaves meant that that's a channel.
Well, the leaves meant there was flow.
Right.
But,
You
and there
have
was
sheet
also
flow all the
topography
way
showing
across the
a
site.
channel. The topography
You
showed,
get-
a
You
and
get the sheet flow that follows down the hill into these valleys, but there is no definitive channel. A definitive channel
well, you
is a
say
scouring.
no definitive channel, but there was some evidence of a channel from that area down the hill. We saw,
I think what Dave is trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this is a swale that's on the surface of the ground, much like you have a swale on a roadside. It's not something that's scoured into the ground. Is that correct, Dave?
Right.
Well, how did the swale get there?
The natural feature of the topography is not
Right.
because it was worn by the water.
How do you know?
It's a big valley. that goes
Valleys
across
are,
it.
could be, from glacial meltwater created a valley, and then it's where the water goes.
In this
Yeah,
case,
it's-
where we've run the calculations for the ILSF, seeing that it doesn't overflow very much for the 7-inch storm, and also that in the area where we're talking about, there's a ridge that runs through this whole spot, so there's not much, if any, surface flow that would get there during a regular storm event that would be able to
Mhm.
create a channel like that.
opinion on this, Amy?
I tend to find the fact that it only overtops close to the 100-year storm the most compelling. So it's not a common event that goes down that channel. This also may, and we get to the vernal pool discussion too, be an area where you need a third-party review just to, double-check the calculations. The topo in there is bizarre. I'm not sure how much topo you have in that whole area.
We
but
did a pretty detailed topo.
Yeah.
So the impact, if.
Honestly, and I told Carl this, I would have argued this is not a connection. I was the first one down the hill, like, oh, here we go. But
Right.
it's a real, this is less obvious than 53 Hartwell, 73 Hartwell. You want to come over here and kill this?
I know, I'm a mosquito ninja at my house. Yeah, I mean, I think that, I guess that's almost more important is if, I mean, I do agree that it can't be frequent based on what we saw, but, again, water is flowing there. But if it
depending on the cows.
if it satisfies the calculations, then, I mean, perhaps that's really,
Yeah, and I have
really where we
no
need to go with
idea
this.
if there's groundwater out there that fills up the vernal pool so that if, you
Yeah, it's
you
like
gotta figure out where the
a
groundwater is
spring
before you dump
fed
the stormwater on
instead.
it. It's the same.
I was looking for
Yeah.
springs, and
Yeah,
it wasn't
and-
really easy to tell, but, I mean, water is running down that hill, it's just hard to
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
where it was coming from.
And we also ran this by how the state requires you to run the calculations, so we don't take into account any infiltration through the soil, so it's possible that it could infiltrate as well, so.
But
Well, if
the
it should, it's not
calculations you have to
overtopping, it
determine,
would
you have to
have to.
start with where groundwater is.
Mhm.
Because that's already filled up the bathtub, and then you put the surface water on it, so,
Yeah.
100-year storm
Yeah.
is gonna depend on where that.
I think that's the rock wall.
So do we
Yeah,
know the
I'm looking
groundwater
at-
elevation,
Yeah.
you say?
It's obviously a damp area.
It's hard to tell because it's gonna vary seasonally. When we were out there was practically no groundwater in it. There was a pretty deep hole that was somewhere in the middle that had some water in it, and then in the spring when it rains, it's hard to tell if it's rain or groundwater.
So what do you want to do about this, folks?
So there's that issue, there's also the vernal pool issue as well, let alone the impact, but.
Is,
It is not a certified vernal pool, but it doesn't mean that you can't find that there's compelling evidence that it is a vernal
potential
pool
vernal
and should be.
you're the expert on the vernal pools, aren't you?
Well, the state does list it as a potential vernal pool, and I would have to say yes, it is a vernal pool.
So does that mean would be a restriction on it? As to how close you could build
Well,
to
there's
it?
there's a buffer around, vernal
There's
pool.
not, you've got the vernal pool depression, which I think is pretty much what you flagged, but part of the vernal pool is the 100 feet from that. So that's not a
It's a
100-foot
resource
buffer, it's
area,
part
but-
of the vernal pool resource. As long as it's within, in this case, or maybe in this case, the ILSF. It doesn't
So
go-
does that mean the driveway's within?
So the driveway, the way I see it,
Is
is in the
the-
vernal pool,
Is in the vernal pool,
and that's
Which-
a problem.
yeah. I mean, wouldn't they have to put a bridge structure, or not have to, but it would have to follow the stream crossing standards over a vernal pool?
You can't build in it, right? Or shouldn't build in it?
Yeah,
Well, they'd
I'm-
have to mitigate.
I'm not clear how you get that crossing it through a vernal pool.
Wouldn't they have to
Is
replace?
that another question you could ask, seeing as you're gonna be talking to Natural Heritage?
I don't think we were in the vernal pool.
No, we're a couple feet from the edge of it, so we'd be outside the actual vernal pool, would be within the,
But that's just the vernal pool depression.
yes.
It's not the vernal pool is
Vernal
bigger
pool
than just the vernal pool
resources.
depression.
100 feet.
The habitat area, yeah. It's 100 feet or up to the limit of the
Within the-
resource area
yeah.
you're in, yes.
But you can work within that 100 feet if you do the Appendix B. You have to do an Appendix B that shows you're not impacting the habitat. Because I have gotten an approved driveway through the 100 feet of no impact.
And again, we sent the same notice and plans to the state, and they didn't have any comments on the project.
That means nothing.
I would agree with that.
But we do. Especially if it's a vernal pool.
Seeing as you're gonna be on the phone do you think this needs to be investigated more, or?
Well, he says it's listed as a potential vernal pool, so I think the. we
And
have to
I think you
see-
can see it's a vernal pool, because otherwise, it clearly has the criteria that is needed for, you know, a delineation of vernal pool outside of breeding habitat area. So if you want to say it's not a vernal pool, the only way to, I think that you guys need to ask for the information, which is going to be in the spring.
Right, yeah.
So that it's not, so I don't think you can make a decision now that it is not a vernal pool.
No.
No, right, we're not disputing that it's. a vernal
Right,
pool.
exactly, I didn't think so. So
So now what?
Yeah.
now you're at the point of, you know,
Should be.
was the vernal pool depression flagged correctly? And what to do about the
Well, if Dave's saying, he calls it a vernal pool, then you gotta deal with the 100-foot.
yes, I had a couple issues with some of the flags around the vernal pool depression.
Right,
And then you have the extra area to worry about, which takes the, you know, you can get us through the process, the Form B, walk us through all that.
No,
But, you know, because that, and that's where I was saying, you know,
If you do
besides the
observations in the spring,
ILSF issue
basically.
aside, you also
Well,
want a
he's
third-party
declared it as a
review on
vernal
how
pool.
this vernal pool
Right, but
depression
the,
was flagged.
but in order to do the Appendix B, they have to discuss the impacts to the habitat, which is 100 feet from the vernal pool depression.
Right, but you
So-
don't need to do that in the spring, based on the questions that are in that Form B.
Okay, well then,
Yeah, you
we
need, you would
can
need
ask
to, you would need to agree on the flagging of the depression piece of it.
Right. Where I flagged it is where I felt that the required standing water for 2 months in the spring would be maintained. There's no question there's water beyond my flags at some point during the spring. But in order for it to be a certifiable vernal pool, it has to hold water for 2 months, 2 continuous months in the spring. And my contention was, I felt that because it was so shallow as you got uphill out of that big depression, that the water would be, first it would be pretty shallow, and second, it would be the first to recede when it started to dry up. But from where my flags were down, I felt that that area would have the necessary water. It would still be holding water after 2 months.
and your flag,
When you
your
say you
flags were here.
felt, is it something that you usually have to calculate, or can you just eyeball it?
Well, I just rely on experience, because I've done a lot of these. I've certified a lot of vernal pools, I've studied a lot of vernal pools. And then it's in the area where the ground drops off significantly, so the water goes from being shallow to deep fairly rapidly. And then in the middle area, you saw how deep that water is. There's gonna be 4 to 5 feet of water in the middle there. So there is a good-sized area that I felt would maintain water for the required 2 months, which is what you need to get the eggs to hatch and the, whatever it is, salamanders or frogs to develop enough to get out of the water. Because if less than that, they won't make it. So I felt that outside of my flags, you wouldn't have the water there long enough. They would just continue to move in with the, you know, to where the water was after they hatched.
And you said it was the vernal pool or the ILSF flags?
The vernal pool flags.
Vernal pool flags.
I mean, yeah,
And so
the-
were they moved, and were they flagged here? Because I remember standing here, you know, looking in. So are the flags still here? Were they these flags, or were they other flags?
They were still there. They're still there.
Yeah, there were 1 or 2 when I stood, and I couldn't quite figure out why, you know, what was in front of me, what was behind me, and what the difference was between
Okay.
the two.
All right, so you didn't need them to move or add any flags, or that's occurred? I'm just trying to clarify what you.
We discussed the issue, we did not move any flags.
Okay. But you felt flags should have been added?
I would have moved flags, but we also weren't sure where this was going with a potential third-party review for other things too. So we did not, really get into it in the field.
Okay. It sounds to me like we need a third-party review for that calculation, because I think that's the crux of the ILSF. And then.
Yeah, because the ILSF is going to be set by the
Yeah.
calculation.
Right. And then, should we add the vernal pool to it?
I would think so.
That's kind of my.
If it's there,
Might as well.
he's calling it a vernal pool.
Question is,
Right, but
how
where,
would you determine
but where
that
it's.
boundary?
Yeah, the
right
boundary
now?
and where it's, right, the boundary and where it's flagged.
Okay.
Did you flag that in the spring?
No, I believe this was last year sometime.
Okay. But not in the spring either. Okay.
Okay, so if we do a third-party review, are you willing to pay for it?
I'm not willing.
Well,
I'm the property owner, you're asking me.
you're basically saying you don't have enough information to make the decision.
I just hired these experts, now what I'm hearing is you're challenging their expertise, so I think you guys should pay for it. And if you're not-
But we have it in our bylaw that you pay for it.
I'm sorry?
It's in the bylaw that you pay for it.
I think I need to speak to my lawyer.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you a question. If I pay for it, does that mean the project gets approved? Am I still waiting till the spring? Am I, as a taxpayer of the town, what position am I in?
It's basically the,
I'm just trying to put a driveway into my house.
right, and so the resource area needs to be defined, and so there are a couple of questions regarding the resource area, and it's typical to have, another set of eyes. That's essentially what's going on, and so the sooner we can define the resource area, the sooner we figure out how to go about the project or
Or denying
Or
You
not.
can't give me any definitive timeframe, but you're asking me to spend additional money above and beyond the expertise I've already paid for.
The commission needs additional information in order to make their decisions.
And
And
so is
one of the
the-
basic things is what are the resource areas out there? Vernal pools being probably one of the more valuable ones that you're going to be impacting. So it's a question not only of where the resource areas are, and we're basically talking kind of two resource areas in a sense here, the isolated land subject to flooding, potentially, and the vernal pool, and they nest inside each other. The vernal pool nests inside the isolated land subject to flooding, which you're planning on crossing. And there was mitigation basically for the storage, the flood storage of it, but I didn't really see much about the wildlife habitat and the vernal pool habitat that was being impacted
So is
by the crossing.
decision based just on calculations then? I'm hearing you're proposing, I heard something about calculations and needing a third party to confirm the calculations. So the question is the decision based on just those calculations? So
No, that's the first step.
If a consultant, so what is paying for a third party who's okay? They come back, they give you calculations, and they say this. Is it just hard science that you base your decision on, or is there?
Sounds like there's experience involved too.
Yeah, and that's why I'm asking. is your question
There's one of them.
I'm not experienced, I
Yeah.
just hired.
The limit of isolated land subject to flooding is basically an engineering calculation. So it's more straightforward, than delineation of the vernal pool depression, which is a little bit more of an art.
So it's an art. So if I pay additional money for a third-party consultant, they come up with calculations, but the decision is not made on science, it's made on an art or how people feel that
Well,
evening.
no, that is the science. Unless you're going to go out there for the next 5 years and monitor the water levels out there, then you have to have people out there who have looked at vernal pools
Okay,
for most of their
and
career.
I can't because you're questioning the quality of the work of the firm I hired, so we can't have them do that additional work? In
No,
other
you have a
words,
challenging
is there
site.
additional work
You have
that's
a
being done?
tricky, challenging site. Things aren't straightforward as far as being able to walk out and look necessarily, which is why I think Amy referred to some of it as an
I
art.
understand that. I'm
So
trying
it's a
to-
so
I'm trying to figure out where it stops potentially. I just hired a firm. Now you're asking me to hire another firm. Is there the potential to hire yet a third firm?
Not usually.
Why not?
I would say most of the time, if we hire a third party, that it makes the decision. Most of the, I mean, I can't even remember when we've hired a third.
Because there are,
Fourth party review.
the issue here is finding out what is the existing conditions out there that is being impacted. And I think, I'm guessing from looking at this, that once you know what the resources are, the impacts to it is not going to be an easy route, but it's a more straightforward route.
Right. We'd know how to then move forward in permitting or not with it. So.
I mean, if that vernal pool line, moves 5 feet, you're in the vernal pool, so it just makes it's a big difference.
And if it's a BVW.
Yes.
So it's not only tricky, but the decisions or the decision on the resource area will change it significantly if it's different. So it really matters.
And how much, just so I understand, I don't have this science background, maybe some of you folks really don't have. So with this third party, if they wind up doing some additional work, the fee that I'm going to incur, what is the additional data set that you expect from them that is going to determine the decision?
Well, they'd need to
So what do you
delineate.
have in writing that says, the next consulting, whatever that data is, it has to meet these requirements? Is there something in writing somewhere?
Well, it's usually
Or is it just a study
a map.
representing you guys?
It's usually a delineation, so they'll delineate the resource area as they see it and as they calculate it. So they need to have a plan where they've mapped a delineation and most of the time a letter describing what they found. That's usually the part, 2 parts. So, would you agree to having a third party?
No, I'm not going to agree to anything until I speak with them first.
Okay. Then should we extend this to?
Yeah,
the
we'll
next
have to,
meetings?
then we'd like to continue this.
Well, let me ask you a question. What's the difference if I agree it's still going to get continued, isn't it? Or are you going to make a bit, what decision could you make now that would be to the benefit of moving the project forward?
Well, we wouldn't be able to permit it. We wouldn't be able to permit it.
So.
If we can't make a
any more
decision.
detail?
no, I think
If you
Yeah.
said there's no way you're paying for a third-party review, and the commission needs to make the decision on what is in front of them, I'm hearing that the commission's saying they don't have enough information, so would deny, because they don't have enough information to make the decision.
And it's my recourse.
You appeal to the state. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. You
Re-
appeal the order conditions under the Wetlands Protection Act to the state. You would need to appeal the decision under the bylaw through the court system, through land court.
And
Land court?
if there's a third, and if the third party comes in, I guess the part I'm still unclear about is if I go ahead and approve and hire yet another expert, I'm just not comfortable with, how do I know you guys aren't going to confront those experts in the same manner? When are you satisfied? How do I know what satisfies you? There's no.
Well, just so you know,
It's
we've
just-
never
it's just,
gone.
okay, go spend money and hire another consulting, another set of experts, but I don't know what the outcome of that is. I just hired a set of experts.
Well, as we mentioned, that it's never really gone to a fourth party review. I mean, usually a third party review, we're set in either corroborates or does not what your consultants have done. It helps us reach a decision.
I know it helps you, but again, I'd like to hear the emphasis.
If you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
Just overhearing this. Jeff Hannaford.
Can I ask you, are you an attorney or?
Engineer.
Oh, okay.
But I think one part that's getting lost is you don't hire anybody. What happens is, the way the process works is, if they feel they need a technical expert to help them make a decision, they hire that person.
But I'm paying for it.
You reimburse the town
Yeah.
through a separate account that the town has set up. A lot of towns do this, and their regulations give them the ability to do it this way. They don't have the resources to hire these firms, that the budget wouldn't allow for it. So the way they are able to accomplish getting the information the way you did by hiring these gentlemen is for them to hire someone, and the bills get submitted to the town, and they notify you, and you have to reimburse the town for that. So
Approved list
basically,
of, vendors, or-
right, this third party would be working for the town,
For the
not
town,
for
right.
you. Right, so
So
when,
how do I
when
go,
they,
so, does it go through bidding process? Am I getting the best expertise at the best price, or just?
you're not getting anything, they are.
Alright, okay. Alright.
That's the key to it, they're getting it,
Okay.
so
So
they're
basically,
hiring.
I'm stuck, I don't have a choice.
Yeah, they're hiring a consultant, they'll listen to their consultant. And their consultant will work with yours to see if they can come to a mutual agreement.
Okay.
And if they can, then everything works out fine.
Can I
But
ask
basically,
you guys if this-
we get an estimate of what it's gonna cost, and you put some money in escrow. We collect the money up front
And are we talking several thousands of dollars for this?
without getting having talked to somebody to get an estimate. I have no idea. Amy, would you throw any numbers out? $1,000, $1,500?
I think it'd be more than that, especially with the engineering piece of it.
It's a lot to ask for a taxpayer.
Yeah, it's not inconsiderable.
2,000.
So if you want to think on it, we'll just continue the meeting, continue this to next meeting. But if you want to move it forward, you've got to kind of say yes, and we go forward.
And going forward means you folks will go get a proposal, and before any work begins, I get to review the proposal, or you just, how does that work, the process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll agree to that.
And you agree to continue this to the next meeting?
Yeah, I think that's for now,
Okay.
right? When's the next meeting?
25th.
25th of September.
Again, I think I'm here, but if I'm not, I'll have representation. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I know, but, well, anyway, thanks very much.
All right. I just wanted to point out something that
Thank you, I appreciate it.
was kind of getting lost.
Thank you.
Project update, restoration plan, point. Hope you guys can be quick.
Absolutely, we can be as quick as we want.
Fast talkers.
No problem.
I haven't seen you guys in a while.
Oh, we should make it real quick then. Say hi, moving on.
Okay. Mass DOP file number 204-430. I guess something must have happened.
This is a restoration plan.
Yeah, we had a little oops with the contractor. So, we've had Ivis Environmental, submit a plan for restoration to Amy, recently.
I mentioned this 4, 6, 8 weeks ago,
Okay.
that they had a little issue out where the boardwalk is eventually gonna be, maybe. So that's what it is.
Okay.
Do we want to go start at the
Yeah,
beginning?
you want to start,
I know that-
start from the beginning and,
I don't know, what's the
Really
beginning?
fast.
beginning of this incident.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, between here, this is a little bit outdated plan, I apologize, I'll go the wrong plan set, but this is building C, this is where Tavern in the Square is.
Oh, okay.
So on the,
I know where that is.
Next to there, we had proposed a boardwalk that crossed over the wetland system there to the future of Building J pad. We're not building it now, we're not gonna build it until Building J goes. There was some erosion problem, just continuous erosion. We had stabilized, but as water came down, it kept washing this out. So Stefan, the contractor, decided to riprap the area. And Stefan get more details, but the contractor went in to riprap it. Misunderstood that this was going to be some kind of deck or raised pier. Thought it was a disturbance anyway, so he drove right through to do his work on repairing the slope there, and then drove back out. So upon discovering that happened, we sort of raised the alarm, whatever. Amy came out, and then we hired, as Stefan was saying, Environmental to give us a plan, restoration plan, how to restore it and whatnot. So contractor has realized his mistake as soon as we told him and said, whatever we need to do, we'll do. So we have the restoration plan from Ives Environmental, which you may know better than I can, sort of talk about what the plan is to restore the area.
Basically, the plan is to go back in, have the contractor reflag the wetlands, because some of the older flags have disappeared. Have Steve Ives, the environmental engineer, on site while they scrape out. What happened is when they went in with the machinery, they sunk. So they filled in the ruts. So he's gonna have them go in, dig out what was put in as fill, back down to virgin material, then put in some more loamy material, fluffed rather than compacted like they've done. Grade it back out so that it follows a natural contour, and then seed it with a wetlands seed, basically restore it.
Although I thought I read that you were going to seed it with non or other seed mix that you're using in other parts of the
I
site
think
first, and then
There's an
next
area,
year.
there's an area between the disturbed wetland area and the retaining wall for these stairs that is not part of the wetland, that also needs to be, it's been eroded so much it needs to be loamed and seeded also. I think that may be.
Yeah.
like,
What
is
I
that
read
the-
though was that it was, if, I thought, and is there a printout of what was sent, the restoration plan? I thought, thank you. I thought it said.
Canary grass.
Why not?
The affected area shall be seeded, New England wetland plants, wet mix or equivalent at the rate of 1. Since the wet mix is not expected to grow until spring 2018, the area shall also be seeded with a fast-growing fall season mix. The latter mix shall also be seeded in the upland area adjacent to the block wall. So I was confused about what this was saying. You were going to put an upland mix first, because it wasn't going to grow, the wetland mix wasn't going to grow, so you would have to put something else there, and then you're going to seed it again with the wetland mix in the spring? Is that what that's saying?
That's very common. The wetland mix usually needs to overwinter before it'll come up. So a lot of times, sort of an annual ryegrass type something will be put in to stabilize the area.
And it won't prevent the
But then-
wetland mix
But then
from
it
coming out?
dies, it doesn't regenerate itself, so then the wet mix can
Oh,
come
it's
up
an
in the
annual,
spring.
annual rye?
Right, yeah.
Okay. All right, so, yeah, I wasn't clear about that.
I wasn't gonna be able to really answer that for you anyways, I was gonna have to go back to him.
I understand
You
now.
owe me one.
Fast growing fall season mix, so it's an annual
It's an interim,
mix.
yeah.
And even in between the time that the disturbance happened and now, when we were there with Steve, the wetland species are coming back up through the material they had filled anyway, so I think it'll naturally take over pretty quickly if it was doing this on its own accord without any.
And then it also is stabilized with an erosion control mat before the seed germinates, so. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I was okay with what they were proposing. What did other people feel? You want to take a look at it? or-
As long as it isn't Phragmites.
Now, where are you going to put the stuff that you're digging out?
That'll probably go just back into one of our biggest stockpiles somewhere up in this area.
Okay. As long as it's not in a buffer zone.
No.
So how close are you having this thing built out?
Well, I'll answer that two ways. One, we're very close to being done with what I think the commission or conditions would be concerned with. All of the major drainage systems are in, save for the building J pad, which is sort of its own closed drainage. All of the retention, whatnot, happens elsewhere, so this pad was designed just to direct discharge after treatment. It has a storm scepter, whatnot, for treatment, but there's no sort of underground detention. So when this pad is built out, it'll have its own drainage system go in. Everything else, the drainage systems are in, operating, paved, where it's going to be paved, either binder course or finished course. So really all that's left then to stabilize is the building M, K, and J pads, which we will provide semi-permanent stabilization, either loam and seed or whatnot, until the pads are ready to go. And then we're sort of waiting for the right tenant. We're talking to some different tenants to go in spaces there along the way, but we'll, they're not eminent, so it may not be permanent, but it'll be more than just gravel, more than hay bales. We'll seed it and make it finished, so close to the point where we could come in and request a full certificate of compliance, because everything will be stabilized, and then we
So these aren't built yet?
This piece is not built. This piece is the cinema under a different configuration, which is going up now. There's some building plans being developed for this interstitial piece, and then there's a larger building, master building K, that's just waiting for some final tenanting direction, what tenants are going to go in there.
And when is the boardwalk going in?
We won't do the boardwalk until building J is developed, because we don't need this pedestrian connection until there's something there.
And is this just a paved area that's going?
No, this hatch that's on these plans, again, these are old plans, this was our phase 2 hatch. So there was some wetlands in here, so this remains green space in
Oh, that was
between.
going to be green space,
Yeah.
okay. So this is the wetland that led into here?
This
that
was an initial wetland filling here and here that we did the replication
Right.
for down behind the hotel.
So what
Yeah,
actually
outside.
feeds this then? Anything?
There's some roof drains that will tie into this to continually feed this.
Okay.
Or again, the natural groundwater
The
path
site.
that created that.
So it'll just be kind of a swaley type thing in here? Artificially, or are you just going to leave it the way it is, a depression in here?
This was wetland area, so we've left it.
And then the roof drains will just go in there and
Correct.
feed it? I
Correct.
see. And I forget, were there calculations that showed that the amount of roof runoff going into here is about equivalent as to what fed it before?
I don't know if that specific
'Cause I know
calculations were
usually
done.
we
I
look
think
at
they were
that.
done on a global basis, so we made sure we had some stormwater going in there. I'd have to look back and see which bill, if it was building K or J that was going into that.
Okay. The restoration.
Yeah.
Do we need to vote on that, or?
Maybe just vote to move that the restoration plan is acceptable?
Okay, I'll make a motion that, to approve the restoration plan as submitted. What's the date of it?
August 29th.
August 29th restoration plan. And just mention that it's the annual mix, it doesn't say that, but it's an annual mix to be applied before the winter, and then with the wetland mix, so that the wetland mix can come up in the spring.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there anything else?
That's it. Amy have reminded us that we have a conservation restriction as part of our natural heritage approval. We know about it, and per the,
We know that, we're never gonna do it.
So we have not forgotten. And just per the approval, it's, what does it say? Proof of recording, within 6 months of the building occupancy permit, so within 6 months of a phase 2 development area. So the cinema is targeting an October opening, so that puts us somewhere in April that we have to have this in place. So we'll get the cinema open and get to work on it.
Because these things can take months.
They can take months.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll move it to the top of the list to get it, make sure we're in line with that approval, so.
Okay, thank you.
That would be nice, seeing as that's what seems to be on the table tonight.
Yeah. And I think the only other thing of interest is probably Basin 3,
Basin 3, that's being,
which continues to get silty water and stirs itself up and needs to get flocked and discharged, and it's just,
it's being flocked still as we speak. I'm gonna check it tomorrow, Wednesday.
Remind us where the 3 is?
3 is in this area right here.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
That's wetland areas,
Okay.
definitely not there.
No,
That's
I'm
wetland.
sorry.
It's right here.
Was that the one we went out to before that was all silty? It was like
No.
last year, though.
well, Basin 1 certainly was, which I think you remember, so Basin 3 was the other silty.
I remember going out to that side and it was
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, that would be 3 then.
Yeah, 'cause Basin 2 has always been pretty good.
It's really isolated, it's really just.
What's causing the issue?
Some of it is, as Amy mentioned, silt that's been there from construction that gets stirred up during the heavy rainstorms. We did have a silt issue with that 4-inch rainstorm that came up, it was a couple months back.
Oh, it was
Because
3 inches. It was 3 inches.
3,
It was like
It was
3.6.
almost
so, yeah, it was a
3.7.
little less than 4. There was a berm here placed before the winter time. There's bituminous berm that was damaged. This was helping channel the water flow and keeping from getting down here. With that amount of rain, this just all overwhelmed everything, so that contributed to it. Now it's pretty much staying clean. With the intermittent storms that we've had, it hasn't been a problem. It needs to be cleaned out, as we did Basin 1 for its final construction cleaning before we finish the paving. We've
I
talked
guess you
about,
have an issue with a contractor that was doing the cinema too, weren't you?
yeah. I think everybody was having an issue with the contractor. So,
And on a big picture, Basin 3 really serves sort of the second level parking lot that where Tavern Square is in Building B and whatnot. The roof goes underground and then there's overflows that go to Basin 3 and then discharges to the wetlands. We've been using Basin 3 as a second line of defense for things coming off of Phase 2 before it goes to the wetland through just overland flow. You know, if we really wanted to make Basin 3 live, we could do a little more intensive work to divert anything coming from Phase 2 to either the building M pad has a temporary pond now, but then that means the overflow from that would be directly to the wetlands, which is maybe okay because there's typical controls in front of that, but if we want to keep belt and suspenders, then we would keep Basin 3 in line with that as it goes. So at some point, we, you know, now that this is paved, the cinema's up, and we're going to loan and seed building K pad. Really, the only thing that may be open, and we're going to gravel and stabilize building M as much as we can. Really, the only building M piece would be going to Basin 3. So, but
Because the Building M basin is a mess. It's got huge
Yeah.
gully and
That's-
stuff that
that's
goes
gonna be
into it, so
cleaned
you're
up
gonna
before
take
the
care of that.
winter time, yeah.
But you're not planning on doing the final clean out of Basin 3 this season? Or?
it had been talked about,
Yeah.
whether it would be this season or in the spring.
and that's sort of the reason I brought it up too, is that's a question of, do you want to keep that there as a line of defense, or do we want to clean it up and put it online officially and divert any Phase 2 stuff to its own treatment facility, so it's on its own. Because we certainly don't want to go through, clean out Basin 3 and then have any, flow from Phase 2 coming in Basin 3 and clog it up again.
Yeah, I'd rather have, I don't know, I'd rather see the Basin 3 continue until they finish Phase 2.
Just as again, second line of defense, if you will, from typical hay bales, ponds, whatnot.
Right.
At the end
It's
of,
so silty, that area is so
yeah,
silty.
at the end of this construction season, we're hoping that, the building M gets cleaned up, stabilizes its own pad. All of this pavement is diverted into the closed drainage system that's there for that purpose. Building K is loamed and seeded and stabilized. Building J obviously goes the other way, so it's not an issue. So anything that was coming here should be stabilized is our goal right now. If we come back in the spring, if everything's stabilized and it's okay with the commission, then we'll clean it out and it becomes.
Yeah, I'd rather, since there is such potential residual, you're saying that the stuff from here flows into here first and then into there?
So.
There might be residual
Well-
siltation in here as well?
Yeah, so we had seen, the erosion that caused our wetland impact, caused the contractor to do the wetland impact here. So some of the erosion there would go into the stormwater system here that may eventually get to Basin 3. All of the permanent stormwater from this area goes over to Basin 3. All of the permanent stormwater from Phase 2 goes into its own underground systems and then bypasses and discharges over land somewhere around here. So I think right now this is diverting towards Basin 3 because of an older temporary swale we had,
And not the wetland.
and not the wetlands. I think if that temporary swale was closed off, then it would, after going all treatment detention, would go
I
into.
feel like if it's working, we could leave well enough alone, especially heading into winter. I don't know, is there a reason to, what do you think, Amy?
It's a constant source of a little bit of degraded, dirty water getting out of Basin 3. It fills up, it's gotta be pumped out again.
Okay.
So and the flocking does a lot of good. You just gotta really keep on top of it, that it gets done, and that you're not sucking the dirty water out while the clean water's sitting over here. So it's,
So do you think it'd be worthwhile to have them at least begin to clean it out now?
yeah, I mean, the cleaning out is gonna take a week or two. I mean,
Yeah, but I think that's, it's not really.
you gotta pump it down, let it dry, clean it out,
Yeah, it's a one-time process. where
Yeah.
we go through, clean it out, remove all the silt, restore everything,
take the plug out.
take the plug out that's in the outlet control structure and let it function. But, so obviously, there's a cost for a contractor to go do that. So if we have any risk of more construction sediment coming there, we don't, I'd rather, there's a cost to run the flocking system too, so it's,
Well, what is your opinion? Do you think because of what's open now at the site, is there a risk of further sediment going into that basin?
I think once we clean up Building M pad, I think the risk will be very low. I think with the repairing the bituminous berm that's at the end of the cinema lot, will direct everything into the catch basins. And then Building M pad all of that becomes isolated, so I think that'll be a low risk, so.
So, because it's your money, if you, what would you like to do? If you think, is there enough risk so that you don't want to do it?
Well, you can also say that if you clean up Building M this season, what is going into Basin 3 isn't as problematic as it is now. And then do it in
It'll
the
be
spring.
cleaner.
Yeah, it depends how your season goes.
Right, right.
Yeah.
We at least get Building M pad stabilized, and so it's not open soil going in there, then it's less risk.
And that was October, you
Less drain in
said?
Basin 3, but-
You're targeting October for that?
The cinema? The cinema wants to be open in October, so we need to be finished with all our stabilization by then. Finished pavement will be up.
Bottom line, just get a handle on it so we don't have
Yeah.
a problem.
Yep.
So you mean finish M and then clean out the basin?
Yep.
Would that be the
I think
plan?
where we were heading is probably a good idea to get it stabilized, let it get some growing season in the fall, and then go back in the spring and clean out Basin 3.
Okay.
That all depends on Mother Nature,
Yeah.
basically. What she dumps on us.
But you were saying, Amy, that it might,
I think
Cause more
particularly if you
problems.
cut off Building M, then what is gonna be coming out of Basin 3 can wait until the spring.
yeah.
At that point, you can
You
make
don't
sure
think
Building
it'll-
M really is a solid solution, before you kind of take building 3 out of the,
Yeah.
So do we need another update, like on October 16th?
think you'll have building M stabilized by the 16th?
Or the
I'm going to
30th?
turn to Stefan, who might know the schedule
Oh,
better,
as-
the comedy
30th?
schedule, but I think a
As
second
well as a
update-
report on the restoration.
Yeah, I think a second update
Yeah, it
is
seems like
is
something
fine.
for the winter would make.
October or November, whichever one.
Is if it becomes clear, like M just isn't happening, you know, it might be worth getting an
Okay.
update and relooking.
So I'll put you on for the 16th, October 16th?
16th or 30th? Is it-
16th or 30th? You want a little extra time?
30th.
30th?
Yeah.
Because supposedly the cinema will be open on the 27th, so if they are, then I'll be good on the 30th, so.
Have a meeting at.
Yeah, you'll be busy on the 16th if they're
Yeah,
targeting
that's
the
right.
27th as an open date.
So
You'll
I'll
be
take
very
the
busy.
30th.
16th.
And the restoration will be done by the 30th, definitely.
Yes, definitely.
Can they get going, can Conley and Steve always get going right away on that?
I was just waiting to get
Yeah.
an answer out of you guys, so yeah, I'll notify them both now.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Now, Mr. Chestnut.
An hour later, so.
I'm not ready.
Are we changing plans again, or?
Very, very minor. Should we wait?
Yeah,
As
just
we
wait.
get there? Should at least turn it around.
So,
I'm used to it the other way.
This will look better upside down.
Yeah.
so what is the alternative on the on the driveway? Is that,
Whose driveway?
For the vernal pool?
yeah,
I mean, what are they, how could they go through?
It's either do it or don't do it, because they can't go around it.
Yeah, is that the only option for access to that lot in Acton?
We probably shouldn't be discussing it, yeah, they had a alternative analysis in there. If they came in through Acton, there's a big BVW, you know, the one at the bottom of the hill, that they'd have to go through.
I see.
Between a rock and a hard place, I guess.
Yeah, a wet and a wet place.
Oh, it could be like these.
Really was
yeah, and we gotta be done by a certain time too, or they start charging extra.
Oh, that's not until 11:30, I think.
Huh?
Yeah, we,
Oh,
so
and
did
the
they,
cat.
one time, because we did almost go to 11:30
Yes, and they had to
one time.
pay for another
Overtime?
whole thing.
Wow.
Or somebody did, I don't know if we did.
It was by like 5 minutes, so I'm not sure if it actually happened. I was just warned the next night, like, you know, you go over, it's another 4 hours. You go over by, because that's, you gotta get paid.
Here's 2 copies of the
Oh,
plan.
perfect, thank you.
Can you make this relatively quick?
So is this the same, is this changed from the original submission? Okay,
For the
not the
record,
original submission, but.
yep. Jeff Hannaford, representing the applicant at Lot 13 Chestnut Lane, or house number 7 Chestnut Lane. I think I'm better off standing with this. Very minor changes. When I was in last, I was told that they were going to be doing some changes to the house design itself. And initially, they thought that the footprint would be somewhat different. In the end, it's very minor change, but we've made the change. What did change is the back of the house here. There was a 3-foot by 18-foot bump out. That's been removed. So actually the back of the house now is a little further from this wetland finger because of that bump out. Otherwise, the house footprint is the same. So there's little impact to that. The only other change, it's technically on lot 12, but it has to do with the driveway, and that is the retaining wall that's been built. We had initially shown a small section at the end, like a little wing wall coming out, thinking that it needed to be there for grading around that, the end of the turnaround portion. But I met with the contractor, and in looking over the grades, he felt that it could be just graded gradually around the end of that wall. And as they were looking at it and approaching that section, one of the other considerations was that they just didn't think aesthetically that it was going to look right. As you come around the corner and you see that length of wall, and all of a sudden there's a piece that juts out towards the drive. And so the owner looked at it with them and just said, you know, I don't think that that's what we're gonna wanna see. So they looked at the grades, and we had some stakes for the center line to drive with finished grades. So we were able to compare that to the grading around it, and they felt that they could do a reasonable grade, probably a 4 to 5 to 1 coming around off that end of the wall to make it work. So they want to remove that little section. Other than that, this is the same as what you had seen before.
So the bump out's gone
Yep.
from the house.
And the
then-
main wall is pretty much finished at this point.
Okay.
So that much is in. They're in the process of bringing the driveway to rough grade in anticipation of installing the electrical conduit.
So that meant they're gonna have to raise the grade of the driveway, right? To cover the pipe, cover the conduit.
Yeah, there was conduit installed by the previous contractor. And as they were bringing the driveway to rough grade, they were running into it in different areas. So obviously it wasn't gonna have the 3 feet of cover as they were hitting the pipe already. So what the electric department had asked for was, they wanted to know the limits of the driveway and where the finished grade was going to be. So the agreement with them was, we'll bring it to rough grade, you know, within 6 inches, or we'll have stakes showing finished grade, so that when they come out for their inspections, they'll be able to see the pipe, they'll know where the grades are, and they'll be able to confirm that there will be adequate cover. So he's doing that now. The anticipation was within the next 2 weeks to have the electric department come out so they could actually start installing the conduit. And they will be installing brand-new conduit all the way from, actually, they're gonna have to cut through Chestnut Lane, because the transformer they're starting from is on the opposite side of Chestnut Lane from the common drive. So they're gonna actually start there and bring all brand-new conduit in.
So Jeff, this trench is gonna stay open for another 2 weeks? Is that what I'm hearing?
Sorry. Lost
At least you can find them without them on.
Yeah.
That's a-
bell
that's
on
a-
them sometimes.
This is basically lot 12. But, so is that gonna stay open?
Well, that, they, from what I've been told, they're inspecting it as they go.
Oh,
They'll
okay.
be backfilling, yeah. But it's gonna take, like I said, it's gonna take a couple of weeks to get it all done and get across Chestnut Lane. Chestnut Lane, the crossing's gonna be last, and that'll be the more
labor-intensive part, cutting the pavement.
Because the side casting from this was all over the place.
Oh, was it?
It went, and this isn't the best picture, but it went past,
I was
the
out-
boulders, and it was picking up over the boulders, and then in some areas, it was going over the silt fence. Not much.
When was this taken?
This is September 7th.
That was Thursday.
I don't even know when it was.
Yeah. I was-
Yeah, because
I was
I spent like the
stuck in-
day just driving around everybody.
Yeah, I was stuck in it
Thursday,
all
then
day.
Friday with the down.
That was there on the 7th?
Yes.
Let go.
These are taken on the 7th. And this is probably more like in front of 12.
Yeah, because I went over that with him on Tuesday, the 5th, and that was supposed to be fixed.
Okay, so yeah.
All right,
So
I'll
they
make
still
sure
got
I,
some things to do in there.
Bless you.
I'll make sure I have a word with him, for sure.
So this is, you're asking for an approval for the amendment?
Actually, 13, right. We were in for 12 previously.
Right.
But at that time, that's when I was told they were gonna make changes to the footprint of the house, so we did ask for the continuance so that I could verify what that was about.
Is, you figure this is cast in stone at this point?
For the house, yes. Yeah.
Not for the drive,
Oh, yeah, the driveway as well.
and the driveway?
Yep.
All right, well, I'd like to move to approve the amendment to the order of conditions? Is that what we're doing?
Issue an amended order.
Issue an amendment to the order of conditions for 204-723 Chestnut Lane, Lot 13.
I'll second.
Or a second?
Very quiet second.
Well, I was just looking to see what Amy was.
I didn't, but I have a blank, so you can just sign the blank.
Okay.
So I'm
How
sorry,
often-
who moved?
I
moved and
motioned
Rachel
and
seconded.
Rachel moved.
Thank you. Seconded.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We amended. we
Can
got-
I get a bubble plan of Lot 12, so I can keep it in the Lot 12 file about the change of the wall?
Sure, yep.
Because this all is all gonna go to 13, I just wanna make sure whenever you come for us to compliance, that there's a labeled Lot 12 plan.
Did we need to do this for the tear down?
For the what?
For the tear down?
No, that was just administrative.
So we're all set?
All set, thank you very much.
Okay, sorry about being so late.
Quite all right.
Yeah.
Or it's your life, but yeah.
Yes.
I'm on a board in town, and I know what it's like to sit on that side, and you think that you've got things covered, and you know what you want to talk about, and
45 minutes later.
Right.
Continued public hearing request for an
Good
amended
night.
order of
Thank you.
condition for 46A Nagog Hill. Is that,
That's the deck, right?
Yeah, the slightly smaller footprint in the deck, so I've got the final plans stamped and dated and all the good stuff.
Oh, excellent.
so if we've signed off on that?
Wasn't there some steps or something?
So just need to move and close if you concur and issue the amended order condition.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and to issue an order of conditions for, amended order of conditions for 46A Nago Hill Road, DEP file number 204-728.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That gets through the hearings. And we have to go back up above, maybe some things we can put off.
That, you know.
Correct line.
Andrew, you had something on the Community Preservation Act and maybe the Eagle Scout at the same time?
Yeah, so I've got a couple really super quick things. So as you guys may or may not know, the parking lot on Harvard Road for Oak Hill is all done. It came out really nicely. Everybody loves it.
Oh, good.
So I was just thinking if you guys had any more ideas for possible CPA projects in the future, whether it be parking lots or anything else that would fall within the CPA guidelines. We'll have a... Oh!
Well, certainly parking lots and or kiosks at Williams
Oh, at Williams, yeah.
and at Cloverdale.
Yeah, so I,
Well, don't we need a kiosk up to Harvard Road, too? I don't-
Yes.
yes. So, I think we had, was it $2,000 surplus from
I haven't gotten the final invoices. I keep getting police detail
police detail?
from all
Oh,
over the place.
wow.
Stowe and Berlin, and I guess the police just go to wherever they're
They
needed.
do, yeah.
And then, yeah, it's pretty funny. So, yeah, I think there will be money left over from that Andrew's gonna see if CPC concurred that maybe it could be applied towards a kiosk. As part of the same.
I would think it'd be under the same project, because when you build a parking lot, I would assume that the signage and that the kiosks are included.
You'd think they'd be in the same place.
I would think.
Well, the other one would be Reed Meadows down there, too.
Yes, that's right, yep.
I mean, I just saw in the paper that Epic was not gonna be opening very fine until the end of the 2018 into 2019. They weren't gonna be functioning down there.
But it's not very fine, right? It's the
Well,
other bottling
Pepsi?
company, Pepsi.
Yeah, but
Pepsi or-
it's, I know it is very
You know it's
fine.
very fine, yeah.
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 Everybody knows what
Formerly
you're
very
talking about
fine.
when you say very fine.
Yeah.
So if we do want to move ahead with a parking lot for Williams, I could put together paperwork for the Springtown meeting, and we can do the same thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd throw in maybe like the parking lot and what take might a little more just trail building is getting people from Boxborough kind of into the easement. Because there's a drop and a culvert, and it needs stairs or a ramp, or it needs something
Yeah.
engineering-ish.
And the other super quick thing that I wanted to talk about tonight was Eagle Scout recognition. We actually just had an Eagle Scout build a beautiful kiosk on Neshoba Road for the Yap and Cobb properties, and it kind of got me thinking, well, maybe we should do something for the Scouts at the end, just to even to invite them into a meeting and say, hey, great job, thank you. Yeah, because the troops do that themselves, but it would be good to actually have the beneficiary,
Yeah.
do something as well. So maybe something in December would be good for the Eagle Scouts that have helped us out this year. So I'll look more into that a bit.
Okay.
Okay. Possible community pressure. The certificate of compliance for Hartwell, that's out, right?
So yes, you want to wait until the bound thing is resolved.
And then accepting a gift of seed mix for Joyce Williams property. What's the story?
Ray Lyons, the attorney for Joyce Williams, actually offered Joyce $200 worth of seed mix, and she said she didn't want it because of wildflower mix. She said she wanted grass for the horses. So he turned to me and said, "Do you want it?" I was like, "Sure." Oh wait, I can't take that. So if you think it's right, he said, being a lawyer, that you could make a motion to accept attorney Ray Lyons' gift of $200 to purchase wildflower seed mix and related shipping fees for use on the property the town of Littleton acquired from Joyce Williams on August 14, 2017.
So wait, he has the seeds, or he's giving us money?
He will give us money.
Okay.
It's funny. So moved.
Second.
So wait, is it, does the Joyce Williams property,
Well, because
I remember
they
it's woods, so.
a bunch of the areas where they did the
Logging.
Thinning.
management, the tree cutting plan,
Yeah,
some of it was pretty
For
heavy
meadow.
cut, so it's
Okay.
opened up
So it
now,
would
and might be a
grow.
good area, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
As long as we have places on that property that a wildflower mix would
Right,
grow.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
And he did,
Big
the first, the
margins.
wildlife mix he sent me first was a gorgeous mix, but it was like, none of it was native. So,
It's
you know.
not the
we-
Cheerios mix, is it?
I know. We went back and forth and came up with something, and now I'm driving Ernst Seed Company crazy. Well, how do you put it in? When do you put it in? How often can you put it in? Can I store it in my office for 3 months? I'm driving her crazy. I'm not a landscape architect.
Okay, do I have a motion from somebody to accept this?
Oh, I think we already
Andrew and
did.
Julie.
Yeah, they did. It was very fast.
Very fast.
And it's been seconded?
It was
Yes.
the second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Can we sidetrack the bylaw regulations?
What I would like to do is actually go back, and I had these on trees. The McDonald's who live next to Kristen Kazakis over on Scheidbark, Want to take down 3 dead trees. They are, I'm guessing 7,500 feet away from the wetland. One maybe could hit the house if it came down, the other 2 doesn't look like they would. So I wasn't sure if that was something you wanted to have an RDA on. It is 3 trees. Or you want me to say yes, or just like forget it?
Wait, where is this?
This is the McDonald's who appealed the 6 Cottage Way, so it's her neighbors.
So like up on that hillside
Right,
area?
yeah. Yeah, so if you go to the end of Shagbark, you know, we usually
Just 'cause
stop
they're
and park.
dead?
It's the house.
The trees are good habitat.
Whatever happened with the appeal?
It's in process. We had the site, I think a bunch of you were there. And so DEP has until the end of September, I think, or will probably take to the end of September to make
Didn't
their.
Sarah make that? Because I thought it was like
No.
10 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I couldn't make it.
Andrew and Julie were there, right? Does anybody else think that was it?
On the initial one, but.
The what?
The
So-
initial one, but.
Yeah.
Are you allowed, I didn't really know what the convention was. Are you allowed to speak to DEP? Like when on the site walk, did you interact with them at all? And know how what their view was, or are they not allowed?
Yeah, no, DEP runs the meeting. We basically met on the public road, because Kristen did not want to have the people, the McDonald's, on her property. So, Megan from DEP has felt it's better to meet on the public road end of things. Had a discussion, she gave her spiel, Kristen gave her spiel, the guys who appealed gave their spiel, we gave our really short spiel. And then we did the site walk without the McDonald's. And she got to ask her questions of whoever. And then she went off and talked to McDonald's afterwards. So, if DEP upholds the order, the plan is gonna be revised a little bit. So, you know, I told Kristen, well, once you know what DEP is gonna approve, gonna need to come back under the bylaw. So she's gonna have an order of conditions now from DEP and an order of conditions from you guys for the bylaw. So minor changes, the utility pole is gonna need a new guy wire. She's not gonna do that snow storage up at the top. She's not gonna do anything with the Japanese knotweed. She's not gonna do excavating for the Japanese knotweed. She's just gonna do control, which she's already done, so.
Okay.
But they wanna take down 3 trees. Do you wanna see an RDA on something like that?
I just say let them do it, I guess.
What, you mean it's already done? Or is this-
No, they were asking permission to do it. So, which led into this.
Why? Because it's not gonna hit.
We've been talking about a tree policy for a while, and
hit the house.
it always comes up at the end of the meeting. I was like, whatever.
revenge
So,
type
in
thing.
front of you tonight, you have a minor project approval policy. And I took this mostly from Stowe. And they just say removal of a single hazard tree. Now we're talking up to 3.
Wait, where is that? Oh,
Well, you only said one of them's actually gonna hit the house if it.
Right, the other 2 are just dead. They're gonna fall and make a mess.
So this would be the one single.
So in this case, I could not do this as administrative action. You would need to file an RDA. Obviously, we can make this anything different, and I will tell the McDonald's if you think it's fine, just like, go ahead and take these down, but we might want to work on something like this, so
I would think it could be
at
more
least
than one.
somewhat consistent.
That's what I'm-
Well, I mean,
I have,
like
I have a
this, we
problem
could
with
say
dead trees. Seriously.
What if they're not?
Woodpeckers love them.
I know, I
Nest
like,
in
I like
'em.
dead trees.
I have a problem with
I
them
really
coming
like-
down.
Well, how close though?
If they're not
would
gonna
they-
hurt
Well, if the
anybody.
tree's 100 feet tall, and it's 75 feet away from the house, and it's leaning towards the house, what's
Well,
the
yeah, for sure.
proximity of hitting the house?
Yep. No, that's a
Well,
problem.
that was-
I
she-
agree,
she-
that's a problem.
Yeah.
But if it's just a tree,
And
a dead tree in
that's
the
a
woods
hazard
that you
tree.
just don't.
Yeah.
Right.
If they just want to
Is
take
it
it
a
down.
view shed tree?
No.
And it happens to be dead? Like how?
It's kind of just barely in the woods, so it's backed by other trees. If it comes
Oh, I
down,
see. So it's on the margin.
it's on the margin, you know, I'm
Margin of
guessing,
their yard.
it's a steep slope, you know, what Kristen's driveway looks like.
Yep.
They're along the driveway, basically, on the
Yeah.
McDonald's side.
Sure.
If the trees come down, unless they're getting blown by wind, I would assume that they would give into gravity and fall on Kristen's property.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but, and only one looked like it might hit the house
Yeah.
if it came down the wrong direction. So, I would like to move ahead with this, not tonight, you know, take
Yeah.
a look at it. We can
Yeah.
wait till Sarah and Carl back in 2, but I figure it's easier to react to something on paper
Yeah,
than just to discuss it.
it's a great idea.
Well, and this is just as examples, it doesn't tie us to anything, it's just an example and helps make a decision
Right,
go
exactly.
quicker.
Yeah, and it means I don't need to drag every tree.
So what is your
Yeah.
opinion? Do you allow them to take the one tree down? Amy, I guess, would kind of like to be able to get back to them. Is that what I'm getting?
She was gonna get back to me with an arborist, was gonna, talk about, I went through with, dead trees have habitat value, that stuff. We agreed, it looks like one might hit the house, so why don't I tell her she can go ahead and take that one down and wait for the arborist and
Yeah,
then,
if it's a
Yeah,
hazard,
that's a
it's
good
a
idea.
hazard. Like
I mean, do we have to make a motion of a negative determination on the one hazard?
I think for this, this is enough discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there've been people that have been hit
All right.
with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had one come down in the yard
Yeah.
with the windstorm, spun it right around 12 feet up, elm tree, and was out in the road.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
had
your
a-
brother got involved with that one.
And in the spirit
chicken
of putting things in writing, so it's, because it's easier for you to react, and it's like herding cats to get you guys to look at these regulations again.
Yeah.
I made and suggested some possible changes to the regs to address a couple of things we've been discussing, so you can look at those and we can talk about it another time.
I got an extra one.
And I would certainly also imagine, if this at least looks like the right idea, that town council would need to weigh in on it too. But this would address, I think the three things we talked about was whether or not the wetlands protection minor activity things would still be allowed or not. And in here I said yes, so you can
I
discuss
thought we
that.
had language that covered that.
Rebecca's feeling is that before the changes, the bylaw, before the regulations, the bylaw did not say anything that would counter that minor activities would still be exempt. A shed in a lawn more than 50 feet away from the wetland, for example. But she said that given with the 50-foot no build, that overrides the minor activities, so you need to put it back in if you want it.
I see.
So there was that one, there was, I put in more about public interest as a definition, it might need to go up front, but if you want to consider letting someone, like Workers' Credit Union, do some building, but do a lot more beneficial stuff in the buffer zone type idea.
Have you heard back from them?
They are filing in October.
So they are coming back again?
Yeah. And the third part was whether or not you want to consider letting somebody who's already in the 50-foot no build do something.
Yeah, I feel
Wait,
like
I
that's
thought
an
we were
area
gonna-
we need to address.
I thought we were gonna look at Russell Street tonight. Russell Street project? I thought I remember
That's the Citizen
reading.
Bank one that we're talking about.
Oh, right, yeah.
No, it's Workers' Credit Union.
Oh, yeah, what do I keep saying?
I keep calling them DCU, so it's, you know, the bank.
Because I remember we were on the list. They were on the list of things to look at for tonight, I thought. Anyway.
Oh, no, you know what, they had some information they submitted to either Board of Selectmen or Planning Board about what they're gonna do and why they're gonna do it, so I just threw that in on the website. Is that maybe where you thought you saw it?
Oh, I saw it on the website, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, because, yeah, this is.
Yeah, it was a list of stuff I said,
a huge thing. So it's not the donut shop and the bank anymore. It's just one huge bank.
No, it's two things. They're gonna put, down on the pad, further down, they're gonna put in like a banking,
A drive-through type
Yeah.
of thing, yeah.
and then this
there's-
other, they're gonna reconfigure that building to some extent.
It's gonna be just one big headquarters.
Yeah, they're gonna move it from Fitchburg down here. And it was more important that they could be seen from with their sign from
Yeah, I looked at those
495. That was
trees.
their
Those
biggest
are-
issue.
Yeah.
They had of the whole thing.
But that I would
and it could be
consider
your biggest
vista-
issue too.
But I thought that could be considered vista pruning.
It's, what they wanna do is more than vista pruning, because there's a certain percentage, and
Oh, okay.
it depends what, they haven't actually, I don't think, gone out to 495 and looked up and down, like, yeah, we need to take that one out, you know, they're kind of like, yeah, let's take
I
these
wonder
out.
if they couldn't have
So-
put the sign on the bank, on the drive-through, rather than on the,
Because that I think that area is too far off where the exit is, and I think the way the ground is there with the overpass, I think it, oh, well, no, it wouldn't block it northbound, southbound. Yeah, I don't know, you might be right.
Put up
It
a
might
cover
be
weather
possible.
balloons about where they want to put the sign, and then drive up and
Yeah.
down and see what they can see. I've done that before.
Put a balloon in the air on a string.
Yeah. I mean, those are,
Well,
those are
big weather balloons, but
big
you can't see a
trees.
balloon, yeah.
But there's a lot of, that we're, not that we're talking about this tonight, but there's a lot to go, that goes into the 50. Anyway, for another day.
And there's also financial considerations too.
Right.
We're getting.
I did remind them, though, that they owe us invasive species management this season. They did it last year. They owe us for this year.
How do we want to proceed with the Hartwell thing? Is that something we need to go to? You have to go research a engineering firm or a third party?
I have never done that here in Littleton. So, I'm guessing I can get it moving tomorrow, and I would go out, and actually, I had mentioned Mary Trudeau and Mary Rimmer, but they can't do the engineering side of things, so it's gotta be someone who can handle that piece of it, which I'm not sure if Oxbow can do or not.
I don't think they're engineers.
Yeah, I don't think they have somebody, they might have somebody they work with, though.
Yeah.
So who?
Now, would
I
green
know of
affiliates
a
be
few.
acceptable? Is there any reason not to put them on a possible list? Green,
Yeah, do they do wetlands?
they have people who do wetlands, yeah.
Yeah, they should be on the list then.
That could be one
Yeah.
possibility, yeah.
Or at least get a quote from them.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, I think,
Isn't it Oxbow Engineering? Isn't that?
No, Oxbow
the name?
Associates.
Oxbow Associates.
what about the,
They'd be excellent with the vernal pool, but
this other guy? Yeah, the last guy we had there with the floodwaters in the driveway. You gotta find someone to get a quote from them for him too.
probably the same list of people.
Yeah.
I mean, does it, I'd work with Alan and Major a decent amount. They're a ways out though, but they're affordable.
It doesn't
Or-
do it.
I think they're
harm to
still working
fish
for the
around,
point.
So we have different people.
I'm not even sure anymore if they're working for the point. Tim is with Alan Major, or he was anyway.
Oh,
For the
really?
Point, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I think he's gone off, he has gone off on his own.
Okay. Yeah, we have,
I mean, I don't think it hurts to shop around a little bit and maybe generate some other people we can call on too.
Yeah, I'll talk to Green and Oxbow tomorrow and see what they say, and they might be able to recommend somebody else too, if they can or can't do it, or even if they,
We used to use somebody out in Ashburnham. He initially worked for,
Chuck Karen?
yes,
Yeah. He wouldn't be able to do the engineering, though. He wouldn't do the calculation side of things.
what about for Hartwell, that's the one
Oh,
we got-
Goddard.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
he mentioned Goddard.
I was gonna say, for Hartwell, you gotta, one of the things we gotta determine is whether there's a connection,
Right.
and that would,
So,
Karen,
and that's the same at Hartwell and for Fort Pond,
right.
is determine whether or not there's a connection,
Yeah.
determine the ILSF, if that is pertinent. And then for Sarah Indian Way, 10 Fort Pond, the vernal pool
Mhm.
issue.
Yep.
and that's a big issue, would be the vernal pool part,
Mhm.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Would Natural Heritage be able to give you any yes or not, or do we gotta have it checked out by a third party?
Yeah, Natural Heritage wouldn't delineate the vernal pool. Like,
And the person that was in here is the one that most people call, Dave Crossman.
Who was the guy who
Yeah.
was walking?
Oxbow is
The guy who was walking with us for Cooper. Who was he with?
Goddard.
Oh, that's Goddard.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is that well under control, same as Cooper came up?
Yeah, I went out there on the 7th after that sort of storm, and they had put in some, they actually notified me ahead of time. They put in some additional, because it was the worst timing for them because they just finished paving. And they said, well, here's the acid test, and you got an inch of rain. And it wasn't perfect, but there was no releases, you know, they were doing what they were needed to do to control it, so they were okay.
Yeah, Goddard did a good job.
Yeah, Mark Arnold, he was good.
Yeah.
Okay, if there isn't any more business, can I ask for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
At-
No, somebody has to motion.
what is it,
Oh, you so moved the motion, okay.
Does anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
10:42.
10:04, yeah, that's what I was afraid it was gonna be.
Yeah. You're like, is that really 10? It is really 10.
Good night.
Nice.